This is pretty intense. All right. Hello. Hello, folks. People are still just starting to trickle in, I think. Hello, everyone. All right. I'm going to quickly announce that we're starting here. On Twitter as well. Here we go. All right. Well, hello. Welcome to our fifth outing of this. We're in this one. We're going back to the classics, back to concrete streets, as they say, and not just any concrete streets, but the blasted rebar and poured concrete of Stalingrad, 1941, 1942. And also, we're going back to 2005, where we're going to play a little bit of the second Call of Duty game, Call of Duty 2. Could be the third if you count there's an expansion for the first one called United Offensive, but it doesn't really matter. What I'd like us to do today is to play through just the first arc of missions of Call of Duty 2, 2005, and then I want us to, at the midway part, at like 9 p.m. EST, take a quick break and then play some of Modern Warfare, sort of to do a back-to-back thing, both to make some. Well, I'm curious what's going to shake out of that. I have some suspicions about like what we're going to see has changed in the series, and more. But also we can pay attention to something specific, which is the role of the Russians in this. Let's see. All right, here we're going to get an awesome. All right, how about that? So yeah, welcome to Call of Duty 2, which is an Activision title from 2005. This game performed quite well. I want to get the specific reception numbers here. Yeah. So, as the second sequel outing in the series, this performs quite well. Sells widely and has been like 200,000 units are sold in the first week online. It's bundled with an Xbox giveaway or like a purchasing package you can get, so that drums up some people who do it. Within 3 years of its release by 2008, it's cranked out like 2 million copies that have been sold, and I think by, the last time I can find data for, which is 2013, it was like 6 million people have bought this game. This is, let's just call this, so yeah, also welcome to the stream. What we're doing is we're playing through the whole Call of Duty single player thing and the whole 20 years of it, and we're thinking about stuff like ideology and empire and fascism, but also we're just going to be playing these games and going, for some of us, going down memory lane, for others of us having a unique and new encounter with this cultural artifact, namely the multi-billion-dollar franchise that is Call of Duty. And for others of us, like, maybe we're just like catching up on a series that we play in other ways. But like, basically the conceit of this like channel and of this stream is that, as the pun on my name suggests, you have carte blanche to ask questions. I'll dive in and out of the Twitch stream. It's just me tonight, no guests. Though Dan is in the stream, also Dan the producer. And I will try and like field questions that I can, and we'll do this playthrough, and specifically we'll do a back-to-back thing where we do a little bit of Call of Duty 2, and then we're going to do the most recent 16 years later, rather 15 years later release of Call of Duty Modern Warfare in its most recent patch, which is 2020. All right, I'm going to duck into the stream real quick. Cool. As close to war as you'll ever want to get. Yeah, so this game, as we just watched the trailer to it, right? And maybe it'll start playing again, and we can like, it's not letting me is that this game is from like the first tranche bunch of Call of Duty games, right, which are all set in World War II. Now, they're all competing within a market space that's created at the time by games like the Medal of Honor series, and they're trying to produce, it's very strongly, where the attraction is multiplayer games, and multiplayer games that are more fast and arcadey and fun, and have a lower threshold of getting into than what is at this point an alternative first-person shooter sort of set of games, which are the Counter-Strike games, which are more technical and remain, highly competitive. The other thing that this series has is a whole series of single-player campaigns that are drawn from historical events in World War, and here specifically from World War II, like in the Medal of Honor series. And as we may have just seen, the goal here is consciously to be cinematic. These are not necessarily drawing on like the most rigorous or contextualized understandings of history, which will provide a little bit of these. Okay, let's. How's that? Is that a little better now? Let's see. I may need to tweak the audio. I'm getting a note here. 1 second. I'm going to go do that. Hold on 1 second, folks. Sorry, just to pop over to Twitch and alter the audio. Yeah, this is a backwards compatible game. I'll talk more about what that means in a second here. Twitch audio. All right, is that better? There we go. Yeah, that's exactly right. Someone in the chat, GFTL, has pointed exactly like what this is drawing on. This is self-consciously in the tradition of specifically late 90s and early 2000s World War II movies. Like, this game draws at repeated points on specifically Steven Spielberg's Saving Private Ryan. And also, as we'll see in a second, on I guess like a lesser known but still interesting film directed by Jacques Annaud, called Jean-Jacques Annaud from 1999, rather 2001, which is Enemy at the Gates, which is about the siege of Stalingrad and stars Jude Law and Ralph Fiennes and Ed Harris. And we'll actually play some sequences that are directly drawn on this. But here we go. Yes, that's right. The first sequence of this game is basically our playing Enemy of the Gates. Yeah. This is basically, I'm going to say something else here too. I saw Saving Private Ryan in theaters in like an old movie theater in Michigan, and was just completely blown away by the D-Day landing sequence, which this game is going to attempt to recreate as well. But just a quick reminder too about one of the big like theses of our stream together. It's that we're looking at these games and this whole franchise as being shaped by and reflecting an experience of the American nation and like militainment complex during the War on Terror and during the past 20 years of specific, American military operations. So this first game, I couldn't get the first one to go on this console yet. It's a little more complicated for doing Call of Duty 1. But these games from like 2003, which is when the first Call of Duty game comes out, to this one in 2005, and it has a third sequel, I think, in 2007, are happening against the backdrop of ongoing operations in Iraq and Afghanistan, and in the second term now of the George W. Bush presidency. And they represent, as like as like a thesis that we're exploring in this stream, this initial moment in the Call of Duty franchise in its inception where simultaneous to America's going to war and the War on Terror, essentially a global counterinsurgency war, we mine history for experiences of a good war, of a cinematic war, of a war with clear good guys and bad guys, of an epic moral struggle between freedom and totalitarianism, which is a term we're going to talk about and kind of problematize on this. And there's a moral clarity, and also it's a touchstone for a type of fantasy and historical configuration of what war is supposed to mean. So one of the things we're going to keep doing here is like teasing open certain basic terms that we're taught and we take naively, but that actually are more complicated. One of them is like war. But this is war in the classic sense. It's set-piece battles. It's people in recognizable uniforms, flags. Look, you can't get much more like classic war in this kind of grim military history way than like World War II. Yeah. Yeah, so these are so like this game is between two is sort of between two movies. On the one hand, it's Saving Private Ryan, right, which includes things like executions of German prisoners by Allies, etc. And then on the other hand, there's what this is about to do with the Siege of Stalingrad, as we'll see in a moment. I'm going to say two more things before just like rapidly like getting into the gameplay. The first thing I just want to say is that this episode of like our broadcast, which I should have written down, number 5, I want us to sort of like get a sense for what the history of this series is like, right? So this isn't just like we're not going to just play through the series linearly in this episode. I want us to deliberately juxtapose these two games of like what's changed in 15 years, both in terms of the visuals, but also in terms of the plot, in terms of the orientation towards our enemies and our orientation towards the idea of war. These are our 4 basic questions, right, on the stream. Like, who are we? What are we fighting for? Who are we fighting against? And what are they fighting for? But the other thing I'm going to say here, too, is that I'm going to give some details of the history of that's actually relevant here, but I'm not a particularly... I'm not a World War II buff or like an expert on that stuff. Later, I'd like to have some people on, I'm going to package some of the gameplay footages and send them to people and then interview them in a more podcast-style thing to talk about specific historical elements. But I am by no means a World War II expert. So if you all or if people are in the stream and want to like chime in and correct stuff, please by all means do so. We'll come back and play this through too. So if you're like really into the Siege of Stalingrad, I promise I'm reading Vasili Grossman and some other stuff to really dig into that. But for the time being, forgive me if I get stuff wrong. And yeah, so without further ado, let's do this. Yes. All right, so we're in the Winter War. And our name is Private Vasili Ivanovich Koslov. This is a shout out of some degree of actually I'm gonna actually have a beer myself. Thanks for the reminder. This is so the setting for this. I'm just gonna like give this to you right up front because it's gonna be kind of interesting. If we're in near Moscow in 1941, right? So we're playing as a private named Vasili. Remember that specific first name for a few minutes from now. And we're playing somewhere near Moscow in the summer of 1941. So this is right at the pivot point where the Germans begin Operation Barbarossa, and they invade the Soviet Union and sweep their way through and proceed to crash their empire upon the steppes of the East, as is said. But this is 1941, and up until the Germans invade, we should remember that the USSR and Nazi Germany are allies, even though Stalin is, even though Hitler out transparently has designs on Slavic breadbaskets of Europe and the oil fields of the Caucasus, and Stalin, remarkably, is we'll get more to the history later, but just like the key thing to remember now, because it's going to show us a clip in a second to give us this history, is that at this point, or at least up until this point, the USSR and the Nazis have been allies, okay? Here we go. We'll put this on easy, because otherwise it's going to throw people at us and it's going to be incredibly boring. I will crush the German war machine without difficulty. All right, here we go.
1939. The armies of Nazi Germany begin their conquest of Europe. First of all is Poland, then Denmark, Norway, France, Belgium, Luxembourg, and the Netherlands. Now the year is 1941. With an army over 7 million strong, the Nazi war machine turns to the east and begins the invasion of the Soviet Union. Using blitzkrieg tactics, they advance quickly, smashing relentlessly through the Soviet defenses and arrive at the capital city of Moscow in under 4 months. Desperately short of reinforcements, the Soviet defense of Moscow now falls to thousands of raw recruits who must hold out against the well-trained German forces in the freezing cold of the Russian winter.
All right, yeah, welcome to the Great Patriotic War. We are playing as Vasili Koslov, who says, "In a few hours, I will join my comrades in the defense of Moscow. The Germans have closed to within a few kilometers, and many citizens, including most of my relatives, have been killed by German artillery. Although I've never held a rifle, I am ready to learn what I must, and to do my duty to protect our motherland against the fascists." And he's in the 13th Guards Rifle Division, which is a real unit. All right. I will also just say, I wanted to give you all, I called attention to this, that bit of History Channel footage, like that preceded this, like military newsreel stuff, does not at any point mention the specific fortunes of what happens in 1941, right? It's the Nazis start taking over Europe. They move from France to Belgium to Norway, etc., whatever the specific order is, and now they turn their eyes on Germany. There's no mention of the 1941 like betrayal, like of Stalin's sort of this crazy thing that happens when Hitler invades the East. There's no mention of like the non-aggression or the Molotov-Ribbentrop Pact or any of that stuff. We're just immediately dealing with the Nazis who are now coming here, right? That's the broad strokes of what's happening. So this is important because now we're playing as a Russian, and one of the questions we want to ask as we go through this game is, what type of person does the game let us play as? And here, it's a Russian who is just fighting the Nazis. There's no other background there, right? And the Russians are against the Nazis, and if you were playing this as a 12-year-old, you would just be like, okay, yeah, the Russians and the Nazis, the East has always been at war with the West. Just you roll into it.
Welcome to basic training, comrades. If you wish to survive, you will do exactly as I say. Now, walk over to that table and pick up those weapons.
All right, here we go. This is, I actually have not, this is one of the few times where I want to play through the single player beforehand. Normally I'm starting to play through single player so I like to know what's coming and not get distracted by, defending Burger Town. We learned that the hard way. But this is one of these times where it's like I'm actually experiencing this in an uncanny way. I haven't played this in 15 years, but I remember this eerily. All right, everyone is all polygoned out. Check out our friends here. All right.
You will
Man, they're all
have to
so
move
weird
faster
looking.
than that, comrade. You will need a real weapon if you wish to kill the fascists. Look at your compass. The star on the compass shows the location of your current objective. Now, go to the storeroom and get a pistol and a rifle. Move!
Yeah. Alright. The Commissar has told us to go pick up a, probably the Mosin Nagant and a Toker or something classic like that. God, these accents are terrible.
Good.
So here we go.
Now go back and report to the Commissar.
It's smooth, like, it's, compared to a lot of the other games of the period, like, you still, it's not really, it's janky compared to what we're going to see in 45 minutes, but it's still smooth.
Very good, comrade. Always remember to use the star on your compass to reach your current objective. Okay, Vasili. Let us see how good your aim is. Aim for one of those two teddy bears.
So Vasili, yeah, is clearly the, we're meant to identify with him. He's good. He's lost his family to artillery. Again, note it's artillery. They don't, for example, get killed by, I don't know, like, the Einsatz group who are walking right behind the Wehrmacht as the Murderach go in. They're not killed by what, like, Vasily Grossman described as, like, the
right there,
Shoah
Vasily.
of the bullet or the Shoah of gas. They're killed by artillery, right? This game does some weird stuff vis-a-vis both, there's some clean Wehrmacht stuff. Like, we'll see what that means in a little bit. But, like, yeah, they're casualties of war. And now he's Vasily. Also, yeah, Vasily, as in Vasily Zaitsev, the famous and controversial sniper of the Battle of Stalingrad.
Right
More on
there,
that in a
Vasily.
minute. Right now we have to kill these teddy bears. Boom.
Good, now fire at the other one.
No.
Pistols and submachine guns might be good for short range, comrade. But for long range targets, a rifle is better. Step up to the shooting range. Ready, comrades? Shoot those bottles and plates. Imagine that they are the enemy.
Here we go. Yeah, this is a good conversation there. All right, so we're gonna go for bottles. Like, and also, so in terms of histories that I'm using for this right now, the one I'm about halfway through is Anthony Vibor's really just like 900, but just giant Second World War history. And I've got a copy of there's some Vasily Grossman around here somewhere, and also
Aim down your sights, Vasili. You will be
some
much
stuff.
more
This
accurate that
really
way.
interesting memoir by Crucio Malaparte called Caput. Is an Italian journalist who is embedded with the Germans as they go east, and some more stuff on like Nazi ideology I'll get to in a minute. But yeah, this is going to be a little less historical. I just want to get a sense of gameplay and like some fake stuff. Like, he's the good guy who's here.
You'd be dead by now if those were German soldiers. Very good, comrade. Not bad, not bad.
So the game, the gun mechanics in this game are pretty good for the period, if not actually like cutting edge. Like the aim down the sights thing, where you actually look down and you see the sight picture, is being. This is a fairly. I think this may be the first one in the series where you can actually do that. I'm not 100% sure on that, but it's much smoother than I remember the first one being too.
I'm still seeing too many battles. Steady your aim, comrades. You'd be dead by now if those were German soldiers.
All right, we'd be dead now. I'm gonna take this.
Very good, comrade. That's
Also, I just want to
Vasili.
like flag, like again,
Let's see how
we are
well you
in
can do under
19.
pressure. You have 15 seconds to shoot the helmets. Ready? Go!
It seems kind of dubious that, you know, a bunch of Red Army soldiers would have bottles of wine that they would be wasting by shooting in the winter of 1941, but sure.
Good, comrade. Now come over here and bash this mannequin with your rifle.
All right. My rifle. All right.
That's enough, comrades. Come over here and pick up a grenade.
These are potatoes,
So-
Commissar. Why are we using potatoes instead of real grenades?
Because real grenades are valuable. In fact, they are worth a lot more than you are.
Oh, of course, Comrade Commissar. My mistake.
Now throw a potato into each of those marked
All right.
target areas.
All right. Gonna pick up a potato here. You may be wondering why the Russians speak in like pidgin English, and that's a good question.
Not bad, not bad.
I don't have an answer for you.
Very good, comrade.
Comrade Commissar! Kommissar!
All right, here we
We've
go.
got a prisoner. Come take a look.
I'm gonna find this prisoner here. Maybe the game will let us commit a war crime. Oh shit. Alright, yeah, we're doing it.
Halt! Hören Sie auf! Bitte töten Sie mich nicht! Unsere Truppen umzingeln ihre Position schon im Südostsektor.
Behind our lines.
Und
To the
sie werden
southeast,
von
and they are
Kettenfahrzeugen
supported by half trucks
und Artillerie unterstützt.
mobile artillery.
Sir, there's a German attack forming to the southeast. It looks serious.
Listen, comrades. There is an armory
We're
to
not
the
getting the
east in
full
basement
GCOD
of a
here. No,
house.
we're like the
Go
idea of
there
like
and
deep
load up on
operations or
ammunition
whatever.
and
No,
supplies.
no.
I
We're
will
gonna
stay
do.
and take care
We're
of our
reenacting
guest.
enemy at the gates.
Remember what you have learned. Good luck.
All right, here we go. So do I execute this guy just to see if they'll let us do it?
Cover me while reloading!
I'm actually put. You know what? What the hell? Let's see. I mean, this is. I'm actually curious about this because other, whether or not. Let's just see if we can commit a war. Let's just see. No more questions. Oh no, it doesn't. So yeah, here I've got my head at the. I got my gun at the head of the stormtrooper here. I'm pulling the trigger. Nothing happens. I cannot kill the captain Nazi. This is an interesting thing, as we're going to see in the series. There are points in which the game, well, the only thing you can do is roll a shoot. That's the primary interactivity that these games offer. So what's almost more interesting sometimes than who the game lets you shoot, it's who the game does not let you shoot. Right? So I cannot shoot the Nazi, and I cannot shoot the Commissar. Oh, well, I can take a pot shot at him, and look, there we go. I just got sent to Lubyanka. All right.
We've got a prisoner. Come take a look.
So I cannot shoot the Nazi, and I cannot shoot the Commissar, but I can shoot near the Commissar, and then I guess, like, Beria gets me. Like, yeah, I become fodder for the NKVD's meat grinder. Oof.
Halt! Hören Sie auf! Bitte töten Sie mich nicht! Unsere Truppen umzingeln ihre
He says
Position
the
schon
enemy is
im
moving.
Südostsektor.
Behind our lines.
Und
To the
sie werden
southeast,
von
and they are
Kettenfahrzeugen
supported by half
Alright,
trucks
fine.
und Artillerie
and
unterstützt.
mobile artillery.
Sir, there's a German attack forming to the southeast. It looks serious.
Listen, comrades.
The hand
There
warming
an
is a nice
armory
touch.
to the east in the basement of a house. Go there and load up on ammunition and supplies. I will stay and take care of our guest. Remember what you have learned. Good luck.
All right. So Vasili, yes, he's a good guy. He's well-intentioned. He's fighting for the motherland, which is also, by the way, in Evil War's history, makes it an interesting sort of feature. It's just like, at a certain point, Stalin, very early on, deliberately employs a rhetoric of patriotic mobilization. Like, well, you know, and we're not going to do the deep history at this point. We'll talk about that. But, like, yeah. The appeals to the motherland as opposed to fighting for communism are significant, historically apt here too, because that's what fought for. But also, again, it's clarified. This is not a systemic. We're not fighting like the fascists as an alternative system, qua communist. We are defending the motherland. All right, there's the half track. All right. Oh, can you hear me? Okay, I'm going to turn down the shooting here. 1 second. I'm going to turn down the shooting even further. Yeah. Hold on 1 second. I'm going to check the audio here. All right, is that better audio-wise? How's this? Yeah? Maybe a little better? I've got it down to 10%. How's that? Yeah, I think that's... Yeah, I think that Warner quote is absolutely apt. Yeah. So here we go, like... Everyone has their own name, which is interesting. This is another feature of this game where it's like I will also like note this, where it's like you're gonna get these characters who keep appearing in your squad. You're supposed to protect them. Everyone has a name. At a certain point, they stop having names. It's also interesting who doesn't have names. Like we didn't. Actually, I wonder if our friend in the SA over here. So let's see, is he? Oh, we'll see if the Commissar has done his duty. Oh, all right. Okay. We don't know where the body went, but also these guys are just hanging out. All right, fine. Okay, cool. So I should say I'm playing this 360 game on the Xbox One. This is one of the reasons why like we're sticking to Xbox for what we can of this, is because of the backwards compatibility function. It's kind of hard to get these games, actually. I had to search around online and order 3 discs of them, but... Alright, here we go. Oh yeah, there's a full crouching, crawling functionality. I'm not sure that the previous Call of Duty has it. Gave me a PPSH. Classic Soviet submachine gun here. I'm not actually seeing any. Alright, cool. Good. Where? It's not quite as... I want to see if I can make the controls even more sensitive. Yeah, there we go. Okay, yeah, that's better. Take one of these. No, I want that. It doesn't seem... I don't know why they're called Sea Lion Granada, but okay. I remember playing this on, like, a cutting-edge gaming PC back in 2005, and being like, oh my god, it's so immersive. Which is another thing I kind of want to think about as we play this, where it's like, what makes graphics good? I don't mean that in like a technical sense, I mean it in the sense that like, there's a, what makes these immersive, right, or not? But also like, I don't know, I keep thinking about how like, playing like the first, like playing this game, like, or like, rewatching the first, like the second Terminator movie or something like that, being like, oh my god, this looks terrible. And I think it may have looked terrible at the time, too. But certainly when I, like, consumed these media as a child, I was like, oh, no, this is awesome. And I don't necessarily know if that's just about where the technology has come or gone. Like, I feel like there's some sort of, like, ideological pleasure or something that makes you want to appreciate these things. And that's something I want to think about. All right. Okay, I have to smoke out here. It's like Burger Town all over again. Here we go.
Hold your positions, comrades! Just a bit more!
Oh shit, that's amazing.
All right, go!
I can't even...
Let's go!
I can't even imagine what it would have been like to be a Russian artillerist on the Eastern Front. That's amazing. Here we go. Also, everyone kind of looks identical. There's some variation in, like, I guess they're not sprites. These are fully rendered. I'm gonna have a game person, like an actual designer person on this show, obviously, at some point. But like, there's some variation in the bad guys. Okay, the doors don't work. And you can see, like, the textures repeat over and over again. Like, it...
There's the Panzer warfare! We need to find a way around this gate! I'm with you!
I think it's built on... I think the first one is Quake. I think this one was built on... Let's see... I think it may be... You actually don't know what engine this is. It's IW, which I'm not sure if that's Quake or... Oh no, it's actually it's a proprietary. They've had this one since 2005, so it's an in-house Treyarch Infinity Ward. No, it is based on ID. You're right. It's based on Quake. It's ultimately ID3. That's right. That's right. Dan is correct. Weirdly, I remember Quake being much smoother. Oh shit, sorry. I think I may have just gunned down my own people. Alright. It happens. Here we go. Pushing forward. And I guess like we're somewhere on the outskirts of Moscow or something. Alright. Honestly, I just want to get through to the Stalingrad stuff. Like, it's... This is why the PPSH is so OP, right? Because, like, I mean, 71 rounds in this thing? This is crazy. Like... Alright, so he looks exactly the same as the guy we killed back earlier. Maybe they let him go. Alright, come on. Oh shit. Oh, that's a good line. Double of blood, lice, drunken hysterical attacks, and dead comrades. Yeah. Oh, here we go. Oh, this guy's back. All right. The real and lasting victories are those of peace and not of war. Ralph Waldo Emerson. I will also say, by the way, that the quotes, the intertitle quotes, I've been collecting these, and you'll see them in a kind of document I'm putting together. But all the World War II ones are a little bit more inspirational and classic. By the more recent iterations, it's just completely like, you have to lose your soul. Like, it's that kind of like dark, like Cold Warrior, like Rambo shit. It also starts quoting characters within the game in the cutscenes, as opposed to this stuff which is only historical. All right, reinforce the solution. We're in Stalingrad now. All right, yeah, he's... Private Vasili Koslov is very... He's gentle here.
We have nothing against the common Soviet soldier. It is your leaders we are fighting, who send you into battles you cannot win. Can you truly trust your own commanders, who shoot you for taking cover or falling back in retreat? The German army is not your enemy. Surrender, and you will be treated with compassion and respect.
Alright, so I think we have an SVT now. I think we have a semi-automatic rifle, which is pretty cool. Alright, yeah, here we go. Yeah. Also, if I don't know if you can hear in the audio, but like the voice acting is Hollywood stereotype voice actors, right? It's like it's the slightly like pervy Nazi like drawl. It's the article dropping, kindly like Slavic like peasant voice for infantry. Like it really, it's not. It's about replicating Hollywood movies, first and foremost. Yeah, this was the gun I just loved in multiplayer. There we go. Oh, I don't think you can run. That's one thing that's a little bit different. Okay, yeah, you can't run. No, I'm gonna stick with the PPSH here. Okay, you can just shoot your own people. Oh, there are women too. That's all right. I think, and she lost her. So they lose their name in death. They lose their name. It's like a reverse Fight Club situation. All right. I mean, like, what the deal with these games, too, also, is, like, you can always just move forward. Like, there's no... Like, that's what the game wants you to do. that's how you can beat anything. Just keep pushing forward. Eventually you'll trigger events and the lines will fall back or whatever. I mean, the smoke effects, I guess, are pretty neat. And like the light effects are kind of cool. I'd like to get to one of the sniping sections here. Let's see. Let's keep flowing forward. Oh. So, okay, like, here, again, note, I just friendly fired that other Red Army troop. So you can occasionally kill your own people, and the game will not penalize you. When you do it accidentally, you can stay in the game. Keep that in mind. If you deliberately mow them down, the game kicks you out. But if you, like, in the fog of war, like Pat Tillman someone, well, that's okay, apparently. The game will just, like, move forward. Yeah, a new mechanic in the series at this point is the binoculars, where you can actually look at a distant level. And again, this is very enemy at the gates. So if we assume we're in Stalingrad in like late 1941, early 1942, we're fully in the process of what the Germans referred to as Rattenkrieg, right? Like the war of rats, and you're scurrying around. It's building to building, house to house fighting. Yeah, sort of like, I think Anthony Beevor refers to it as like an intimate savagery of warfare, which sounds about right. Yeah. I'm going to find and share this British comedy clip from the 70s about, oh wow, look at that, about different types of Nazis in like war movies. They're quite funny. All right. So again, like, these animations are striking, right? The music, you can't hear it quite given the quality of the audio, but the music here gets sadder, right? We're getting a little glimpse of the cost of war. And Vanya has a name.
The Germans are massing for counterattack. Prepare yourself, comrades. We're too few.
I think in the first Call of Duty, which also, yeah, you can't actually frag your own people. There was a scene which replicates historical episodes, if in a kind of condensed way, and definitely appears in Enemy at the Gates, where you're in a siege. I think it's also Stalingrad, maybe Kharkov or something, and you're running up an incline to take a ridge or something, and there's a commissar handing out guns, and you don't get a gun. You have to pick up a gun from the other guy, right? Which does reflect, I guess, the actual material circumstances of, like, Soviet armaments going into 1942 and late 41. Oh yeah, and there are like blocking squads. Like if you try and retreat, people yell that you're a dog and they kill you. So like that's like, you get these, again, these somewhat historically related but ultimately like Hollywood style trope images of the badness of Soviet totalitarianism. Right? And by the way, this is not like a moral space. I'm not trying to pass judgment on particularly anything. If we did that, we wouldn't have anything to talk about. All right, so I can get a scoped weapon here. I think I will take. You can slightly steady it. You'll note that this game actually does include swastikas. A lot of World War II games subsequently don't. Most notably, the most recent Battlefield also has not done this. There's some legal dimensions to that for games that want to be played outside the U.S. I think in Germany you can't have these. You can't actually have them. So, there you go. Again, it's very cinematic, right? There's a long line, there are people rushing you. I mean, again, like, the Nazis have had time. Actually, now that I think about it, it's kind of weird. Like, we're in Stalingrad, but they hung these giant banners, I guess, because they have that effect. Like, what you do when you Nazi up a place. No. There's something weirdly like, again, like I don't know if my eyes have gotten used to other types of graphics, but there's something like weirdly blocky and kind of like visually difficult about this. There's a flatness to it. Apparently you can carry 4 grenades. That's crazy. Yeah, I was wondering about, okay, yeah, that seems pure fiction. I was wondering about that. Okay, yeah. I was wondering about that too. I'm glad there's people of there are Russian folks in the stream right now. Like I remember, like this is one of these points too, where it's like I'm not a World War II historian. Like, I know much more about World War One, weirdly, which I spent a lot of time reading about. But like I've only read a couple dozen books about World War II, and I've seen the requisite movies. I've seen documentaries and stuff, but like I don't know. Like I'll get things wrong, and I'm eager to actually have people on to correct me, and we get that. This gives us license to ask basic questions, right? Yeah. Like there is something where it's like, so like I definitely know like what was the in Vibor's history and specifically in stuff in Stalingrad, he's got some stuff about like shortages and it's all described as being 2 for 1. I have to actually wonder, like, yeah, that scene where like you're picking up a weapon, if that's true or not. I apparently not. I defer to you. Like, you all know more than I do on that. Like this is also like something else that I want to like sort of like underscore here too is that like, and again, this is interesting, right? Like, what's the war that we start the series with? It's not just World War II, but it's also versus the Nazis, right? Specifically, and like this is the bulk of the series, and I'll point this out right away, and this is going to be relevant more too in a minute. We're fighting the Nazis, right? And even though there is, in some ways, like the first two games have this Eastern Front action, but they're not all. It's not. The series doesn't linger there long. The bulk of it is Americans and British people fighting Nazis, right? At a certain point, eventually, they get into like the Pacific Theater, which is interesting. There are a bunch of reasons like why I think that's interesting. Part of it, I think, is just technical, right? Like, I think it's much easier to, I imagine, animate, like, this type of scene here, plausibly, given the technology that was available to them, than to do, say, like, a viable jungle landscape. Part of it also, I think, too, is about that archive of movie film, of like, movie memories, like, and, like, fantasies, where it's, like, the Saving Private Ryan or any of these other like classic like Great Escape type films, or like even from 45 onward, the ones that are like seared into the American imagination are Western theater, like European theater set piece battles, and a lot of the Pacific War stuff is more like anti-war in orientation, right? Like imagine like a Bridge on the River Kwai kind of movie, right? Like playing that in the Call of Duty. The other thing about it is though too is that I think there's a sense that Americans rightly have that the war in the Pacific was a race war, and we'll talk more about that when we get there. But one of the interesting correlates of that is that the ways in which the Eastern Front war is very much a race war also, in the sense that the Germans specifically see it as being about eliminating Slavs, right, and claiming Lebensraum. But that doesn't come up here, right? You wouldn't. It's just a given. The Russians are fighting the Nazis. We don't hear that, right? Which is an interesting, like something is interesting happening with like whiteness and what Russians can be or not be in this series. And I don't have an answer to what specifically that is yet, but I'm hoping we can figure it out together. Yeah, that does make sense. Yeah. That's really interesting. Yeah, there's this new volume, like Hitler's American Model, that looks very interesting, and specifically about like he probably got the cattle cars idea, right? Oh, that reminds me, a book I'm going to plug here. Jean Chapoutouz has a French sociologist historian. It's Thinking and Acting as a Nazi. You can read, if you read French, it's Penser et agir en Nazi, Thinking and Acting in Nazi. And essentially, it's like an attempt to do psychohistory about like what's the self-understanding of like here of like popular consciousness, but also like academic and media representations of like the Nazi situation going into the war, and so much of it centralizes the specific race paranoias vis-a-vis being overrun by Slavs, and about the need to feed the German populace and to settle the Ukraine and to not repeat the experience of starvation at the end of World War I, which clearly Hitler himself felt, right? But again, like, one more effort. Yeah. I think that's, yeah, that seems quite right. Yeah. Again, like, I'm gonna have some people who actually like, oh shit, okay, good. Oh! My goodness, I just kidney shot another Vasili, and then, yeah, we didn't see that. Don't tell it comes. I'm more just like trying to go back to this. Like, I promise, we'll actually have a good leftist historian who knows everything they're talking about. Like, on to talk about some of these specific battles. If I make mistakes, please forgive me. Alright. Come on. Yeah. Alright. So I have to go somewhere. God, they all have like these dead eyes and slack jawed, but like they're all so goofy looking. Alright. Well, they call them batches at least. Like, alright, here we go.
Right away, Comrade Lieutenant. We need engineers up here. Get the explosives. I've got some TNT. I'll get started over here.
Okay. So another thing I've been thinking about a lot, like, for the purposes of this stream, but also just, like, in the past couple of years, like, as, again, I educate myself, like, and talk to other people, is, like, our notion of the Second World War as a discrete thing, right? In the West and in the U.S., it's 1939 to 45, right? But there are other analytic frameworks and other perspectives from which you can impose different dates on that. And, you know, whether you see the Second World War as a direct continuation of, like, you know, you can read the First World War and the Second as one long sort of cataclysm, or you can turn to events, you know, like in 31 or 36 in Manchuria involving Japan and China. Like, you can, depending on what you're, or you can even turn to, like, the Italians invading Ethiopia. Like, you can the way you choose to define what constitutes a world for a world at war, and that you can thematize in, like, these dialectical terms, like, you know, the fascists versus, never quite clear. These have certain, their choices, their editorial framings that happen there. Okay, I'm gonna try and get out of this and figure out what the fuck's going on. I think maybe it wants me to go around? Okay, yeah, I see.
Here you go, Goran. Set these charges on the main support.
Yeah. That's fascinating. Yeah. So, GTFL in the chat says, like, the Russian explanation of why the Western Front effort succeeded was that we took the brunt of the Nazi war machine to the West, so the Western Allies had it easier, even though my grandfather always talked about how grateful his unit was for receiving American jeeps and equipment. No, it's actually, this is great. I love this content. Please keep writing them. Like, and at some point we can mirror it into Discord too, because I think, you know, if you all are comfortable with this stuff persisting, like, really, there's really cool stuff happening in this stream, and I'd like to be able to preserve it for other people to read, because, like, that's, again, we're doing this together. Like, I see this as a collective effort. No, so yeah, don't stop, please. So yeah, like, I'll also volunteer, like, personally speaking, like, so, like, I could never, like, get into World War II in, like, a World War II Buffy kind of way. I always, like, found that very weird when people would do that. It's kind of bothers me out. Which is not to say that I haven't seen. Again, I've read my share of books, and I've seen a lot of movies and whatnot, and, like, particularly a lot of, like, World War II entertainment, like, films, like, from the era are great and beloved. But, like, for so many reasons, it's an odd. I find it's an odd thing to be an enthusiast about. I'm not, like, judging it. If you're in it, like, that's, people have different things that they can get into. I will also say that there's, like, a personal dimension to it. I guess my half my family's Polish, and they were in Krakow during the occupation, and subsequently. But also, there's something about the specific proximity and, like, historically and, like, gargantuan scale of the war has always, like, it's very hard for me to staticize it. Like, 60 million dead? Like, I can't even, yeah, alright. We take down this building. I will also say, I don't think any of these games mention the Holocaust. That's another thing I want to flag. That is how you negotiate with fascists. Alright. Here. I'll show you a little bit of the British, and then we'll swap over into, because I want to give you a sense of this. Yeah, we just leveled the fascists. And I think this is the last game. Maybe World at War. Yes, no, World at War you take the Reichstag. But yeah. Alright, Stalingrad 42.
Stalingrad, 1942. German forces having reduced the city.
Yeah, I'm not actually sure why we're blowing up our own infrastructure here. It's that type of scorched earth, right? But like,
the Soviet Red Army throws its entire force into the defense of Stalingrad. In the chaos of constant warfare, battle lines have dissolved.
So
the ruins of the city have been divided up into hard
there is my understanding. I've acquired this. I went as part of like committing myself to the stream when there was a sale of Call of Duty games. I splurged and I loaded up on them.
If they retreat, the Soviet troops have no choice.
Threatened with execution if they retreat. So yeah, we're going to get big into the blocking squadrons, and we are going to be hordes of well-intentioned infantry peasants who are being forced to fight the Nazis, but are also like, our struggle is pure, but the cause for which we're fighting is bad. Which I want to kind of, or rather, like, it's noble insofar as it's our own land, but it's still tainted by this totalitarianism category, which I want to have someone smarter and more expert than me to talk about, but is, I think, highly suspect, particularly the way it's used here. Yeah, that's like the Stalingrad thing that's fascinating to me too, and this has come out in Bevor's history as well. So like, this is 42. At this point, we're talking about a war that's like, Hitler has not has obviously the man was always a fucking psychopath, but like has completely become untethered from reality in the sense that there is this constant doubling down on pushing, like, the dim consciousness that we're duplicating Napoleon's error in terms of invading Russia during the winter, or rather getting stuck in Russia during a winter invasion is a bad idea. Like, that's gone. We're just continually throwing troops, like 750,000 Germans die in the Eastern Front. It's a crazy fucking number. But of course, that is itself outnumbered by the enormous amount of Russian casualties, of Lithuanian, of Ukrainian, of Fury, like just massive massacres. But yeah, basically Stalingrad becomes the prize because it has Stalin's name on it. So yeah, I could see there being that. Yeah, like, this is the other thing too, where it's like there's some interesting stuff that, like, a lot of the people like within the Nazi like war machine at this point have already know that the invasion of Russia is a bad idea. Again, this is where like Chapoutou's sort of reasoning becomes very interesting about it, insofar as that he joins a whole bunch of other people. Like, I mean, I'm not a what's his name, Snyder, or the Bloodlands guy. Someone help me. But there is an increasing, in the recent historiography, as best as I understand it, people are turning more to like questions of resources, right? And there's a sort of materialist dimension to this. And one of the reasons that we understand people are coming under are reframing German expansionism and specific military campaigns as being driven by competition for specific resources necessary to the war machine, and also towards like feeding the populace, right? Whether or not, again, I'm not rationalizing or exculpating any of that. I'm just pointing out that like this is a turn that the scholarship has taken to thinking specifically about the agricultural lands of Ukraine, to thinking about like the oil fields of the Caucasus, to thinking about the Wehrmacht's dependence on chromium from Central Asian Soviet satellites, etc. So yeah, at this point, this is a purely symbolic, utterly horrifying battle for Stalingrad, when the members of the German general staff are fully aware that their resources would be better and more efficiently used, like getting oil fields in the Caucasus, right? But yeah. yeah, that's like the thing too. Like that's like there's something about the sheer the fatality figures of the world. So like the casualty figures of the Second World War in particular are so incredibly staggering, and the narratives that you consume in pop culture are so sweeping that they have a way of effacing individual agency, right? Like a trope of all the histories you read, but of so many of these films is all about like people getting caught up in events that are beyond them. And I think that this, or just like that exceed anything, that it comes to stand in for a almost cosmic level destruction, of course, culminates in the atom bomb, right? But that this is almost like a human indifference vis-a-vis history in this grand Titanic sense. And it's interesting that should be something that would be gamified as you as a first person with a rifle running around in it, right? That's the site of entertainment in the series. It's not like Hearts of Iron or one of these strategy games or even like so there's some really good for RTS strategy games for World War II, which I'm blanking on right now. Like you were playing as a person with a gun running around. You're simultaneously witnessing these like events, these classic battles. Again, what a weird phrase. But also you're meaningless in them, even though you will be the person who raises the flag on Iwo Jima. And I think in World at War you do blow up the Reichstag Iron Eagle thing. Like it's an interesting Company of Heroes. Thank you. Company of Heroes is great. Like it's a really fun game. That's like a Warcraft style, like old like Warcraft 3 or Age of Empires style RTS. It's really good. Yeah. Yeah, I think that's right about Bloodlands. I think there's also some interesting stuff too in the World War I historiography that started getting more popular. So the 100-year anniversary of World War I, right, 2014 to 2018, there were a couple books that were also about re-excavating the First World War as a race war, at least the Eastern Front specifically, as being about this sort of like constructions of like the Slavic other, particularly among Germans. All right, repairing the wire. Yeah, so we're just, right now, this is going to be a mission straight out of Enemy at the Gates. Yep. Yeah. Oh, damn. Yeah, you get the little onion domes, right? Like we have this kind of these little signifiers to be like this is the Eastern Front. Right? Everyone's glitching through a doorway, which okay, I have to repair the wire. Oh, whoops. Like there's some nice little aesthetic touches, right? Like look at the little filigree on this door frame here. It's quite nice. It's interesting, my memories of this game, because I do have memories of doing gameplay, and specifically of, doing really fun multiplayer, because Vienna was getting really good, we're talking 100 kills in a short, multiplayer round. My memories of it are as it being more fluid, right? My memories are of the D-Day and Stalingrad episodes as being kind of horrifying, as being properly like watching one of these movies. Oh shit. The Germans that's, I think, new in the series. That they fire at you wall down. But again, it's not actually that fluid. And I don't know if it was about, what seems to be cutting edge and cool at the time, or if it's about the, raw, I don't know, polygon count or something. But, I remember these games as being more immersive than they clearly are now. And I don't think that has anything to do with an objective. I don't think it's just a question of the objective graphics design. I think there's something about there's some gestalt of anticipations and of music and just the whole genre framing that shapes how you experience these things in real time, right? Again, it's something I'm not articulating well, but I will over time more. All right, here we go. We got these fuckers. Boom. All right, I'm going to take this MP40 and just clear the people out. And like again, like the guns are put together well. Like they all have their own like sense of recoil, and you can feel like yep, our Georgian friend. Really? Yeah, I never played the Soviet campaign of Company of Heroes. I only played I played multiplayer almost exclusively. So I don't. Yeah, again, I'm sure that I should just actually stress this. This is 100% an ideological hot mess. Everything we're gonna play here is an ideological hot mess. Any like ignorance I have vis-a-vis the representation of things is in no way an endorsement of either the of that misrepresentation. All right, I just want to like stipulate that. Like, please, this is gonna be very queasy and exercise in which like I can only do it if I don't pretend this like total expertise or like moral like. You have to bracket things going through this. Yeah. So thank you for watching and being there to help. Oof. Okay. Yeah. Oh, cool. All right. This is great. Yeah, we need to like. I'm gonna find some way to save this chat because there's great stuff happening in there. All right. Oh, this we did already. Okay. I'm just gonna hold on to the PPSH because it's this. If we're gonna speed run through this giant drum magazine, is definitely the way to go. Oh yeah, and you can hip fire too. Okay, so yeah. You can see why this would be a very overpowered weapon in multiplayer, right? Like I'm just running around, just boom. Oh, nice. And again, you can wing your own people. You just can't deliberately aim at them and kill them. Like, oh shit, fuck. Okay, the whole, being able to carry 4 or 5 grenades is pretty helpful. All right. Oh, I did that, okay. Okay. I think they're yelling for medics, right? Like that's Sanitata. Alright. We're just gonna keep going forward. And again, like the game will let you, if you just keep throwing yourself, like, it's very weird too. Like, here's another like ironic thing. Even as the game mobilizes, like this kind of, these stereotypes like, oh, the Russians are just like throwing people at things. They keep going. Like, you're all disposable cannon fodder and, you know. You yourself, in the game, the way you proceed is by just going forward and soaking up bullets and mowing down people. And the game is going to give you constant waves of AI until you advance things by doing that. Alright, so yeah, I have to shoot this guy down on the ground. Oh no, they died then. Okay. I want to get to a checkpoint. I want to like, we'll finish this mission, and then I want to switch to the modern day sort of modern warfare stuff, so we can like see that, because there's something very interesting I think that'll emerge from juxtaposing the two. Oh shit! Oh, I think the MP40 and the PPSH are interchangeable. Okay, that's cool. It's very obliging for. For World War II to be rebooted into universal ammo. Alright, I think I can get on this thing. Alright, cool. Sure. So I don't think there's any bullet drop either in this. I think you just like drop them. Yeah. I don't need to lead or anything. There's something interesting too about how like these first-person shooters are like, I think of this and I think of Doom, like, or even Quake, where it's like, who do you learn to shoot in mass wave attacks? Like, and it's Nazis and it's aliens and literal demons. So essentially, it's like demonized people, non-humans, abhumans, and literal demons. This is not about trying to like humanize that. I'm just thinking about this as like what are the genres that like because there is something like objectionable, like prima facie about it. Like, here's a game where you just shoot tons of people, right? Like, I know it sounds naive and basic, but like, as we're learning, like, this is a game where you can just, the point is just to shoot tons of people. They're all Nazis, right? That very nicely and tightly deals with the fact that we're just gonna spend the whole game shooting, right? Again, that's how we demo this, and like, again, that's part of what like makes these the later games where, you know, you're shooting up like a Pakistani village, like a little more. You have to wonder if that initial sort of exercise or pedagogy in what this genre entails helps move things around, like helps like normalize certain other things if there's a certain something there. Oh, okay. I will say it's still one of the trademark things in this series too is that it's swift in the sense that like you don't feel like you have a full body. Like there's a little bit of gun sway, but you're basically a point. You're basically the gun, right? You still feel that here, even though these graphics are not that great. I do still feel like there's a kind of weird floatiness to Call of Duty games as opposed to other first-person shooters. Almost kind of like if you ever played that classic flying like shooter game, Descent, where you're a little like spaceship flying through tunnels. It's a little like that. You're a floating point, which is part of what makes getting killed so distressing when it happens. You're suddenly stuck. Like your smooth transit through space is arrested. Yeah, Descent is classic. Yeah, I didn't play a lot of Halo. That's right. Yeah, I don't know why they're wearing gas masks, because my understanding is that there wasn't battlefield chemical warfare on the Western Front at any point within that 39 to 45 time frame. I think the Japanese did some stuff, and of course there's like genocidal usage of gas in executions and mass murder in the camps, but I don't know why they're wearing masks. I think that may be part of the dehumanizing thing that's going on, or just like it looks kind of badass. I will note though that's a weird trope that other World War II games have continued, like the Battlefield games most recently. When they went back to World War II, which is something that Call of Duty has done too, like they're always giving you gas masks for some reason. I don't have a copy of it here, but there is a psychoanalytic critic, Lawrence Rickles, who's written about the Nazis and gas fears. And about like the specific like contagion threat of gas and like this like bacteriological fascist imaginary that I kind of want to turn to in light of that question. It's a good one. Have a good one. Be well, Wolfie Hardman. Thank you for coming through. Stay safe and healthy. All right, we're gonna keep on. I want to get to a save point here, and then I want to like fire up Warzone, and I want to show you like where the series has come. If I die, I die, and we'll just move on. Okay, yeah, again. I don't know where I think they're kind of loosely following me, but like we're just sort of. Sorry, this is like, there's a sameness to all these maps. Okay, I'm gonna get killed by this tank. Alright. Honestly, this is punishing. Like, I'm just gonna let myself die here. Alright. Where's the game? Not gonna... Okay, good. We're gonna swap over, yeah. I think that's right. I think where they're wearing masks to be further dehumanized. Like, they're like stormtroopers, right? In the Star Wars sense, right? Alright. Wow, it's the Germans. I was wondering who it was. Alright, this is painfully... Yeah, they're saying about the flatness is killing me. What I'd like to do now, I want to take a 5-minute just to pause and refresh some stuff, and then I want to pivot from this to the most recent game. So we're going to jump ahead 15 years in real time, in actual, like, game time, like game development history in terms of like American history, right, from 2005 to 2019, 2020. But also we're going to fully like zip ahead 75 years in terms of like fictional history. So we're going to pivot from a game that was produced in 2005 that's about World War II Western theater, Eastern theater, like we've played, but here, like specifically on the Eastern Front, to a game that is set within a different sort of configuration of a world at war. So we're going to go from like the World War II and like a world war to a world of war, you might even call it, and like a world of global counterinsurgency war and a war on terror. So, going to be back in exactly 5 minutes after I wet my whistle, and we'll restart this, and we're going to do the single player for the most recent game. And I want us to think about what's changed and what's different. And we'll talk a little bit about what Ajay Singh Chowdhury so astutely talked about on our last broadcast, because I think there's some continuities there that are going to be super interesting. So here, I'm going to restart this, and we're going to zip ahead to a whole new world. All right, here we go. Oh, hello. All right, back. Dan, you're being amazing. Thank you. I just want to plug the beer that I'm drinking, which not just because it's delicious with Rebel Hills Scratch the Surface, but because Dan designed the label for this. His art is amazing. All right, good, cool. All right, here we are. We're back. Okay, so what we're gonna do now is like we were back in 1942/2005. Now we're zooming ahead to 2018. Well, 2019 was when the game comes out, and it's set in 2019 as well. And just a reminder here, in the first game, we were playing World War II, right? We were playing as a Soviet infantryman, I think 13th Rifles or whatever it was. And now we're going to be doing something a little bit different. And this is 2019. Note, again, the fluidity of the graphics, obviously, they're going to be very different. But what I want us to think about is what are the continuities between these two, and also what's the deal with the Russians? Because I think the Russians and their relationship to like the good guy, bad guy frame, their fungibility of that is very interesting in this series. All right. This game is nuts. This game is just completely bonkers. We'll start with this, all right? And we're going to be reprising some of the things that Jay and I talked about as we do this. Yep, player discretion is advised. My current mission's progress. Yes, all right, so we're starting it again. And then remember, earlier, we were in the good war. We remember like the greatest generation. Clearly, we weren't, I think when Americans say that, they don't mean Russians, but like, we're doing something else now.
Our war is not for our fate. We fight to remove all foreign power from our soil.
We are Al-Qatala.
We are the killers. We fight without sorrow. We wage war without sympathy. This is the only way to live and die a true soldier.
All right, right off the bat, let's there's a bunch of stuff, right? Yeah. We had set piece warfare earlier.
Going to Charlie 2, actual.
Go for actual.
LZ is in sight.
Looks like our boys are on that time, Colonel.
We had fixed camera angles, like a sort of a classic Hollywood World War II movie. Here we've got the moving Steven Soderbergh camera and like the kinetic kind of like 24 thing.
General Barkov has sent a new shipment of chlorine gas to his depot, but his mercs are prepping to move the chems into Urzikstan via convoy tonight. You're still clear to engage, but live fire on Russian military is prohibited. We cannot have an international incident.
No guarantees Russian army won't respond
Yeah.
on this case.
Understood, Alex.
just locate the gas, commandeer Barkov's trucks, and get off the X before the tide turns.
Copy, Watcher. We'll handle it.
Yeah, it's very Kathleen Bigelow. Yeah, it's very Zero Dark 30, that's right. And yes, the guy standing behind the bad guy there, the boss of Al-Qatala, the wolf, who is like a blind sheikh in that kind of like Ramzi Muhammad way, is the guy behind him in the soccer shirt is known as the Butcher. And in this game, he will literally do a Benghazi. So yeah, I'm going to spoil it for you a little bit here. If in the other game we were doing like basically reenactments of World War II reenacting of scenes from early 2000, late 90s World War II Hollywood blockbusters, in this one we're doing a kind of deep into the War on Terror pastiche, right? And I'm going to define what I mean by pastiche in a little bit, but like for now, I'll just call it a pulling together of different images from not just TV and film, so that's there, but also like 24/7 cable TV news, right? And it's always it's based on reality, but like tweaked, right? So right off the bat, the bad guys, Al-Qatala, AQ, like Al Qaeda. I don't have Arabic. I haven't looked up the term, but I'm curious what Al-Qatala means. All right. And you'll note, by the way, one of the questions I raised earlier is like, well, why are all these older games like set in, flat fields or little French villages? And part of it is sheer graphics. Like, look at, we've been able to, how far folks have been able to like change the rendering of plant life. Anyways, oh yeah, the setting here, we are in Russia. We are going after a chlorine gas shipment that is going to be crossing the border from this Russian facility into a Russian satellite state called Urzikstan, which is controlled by a sort of a Russian general slash strong man named General Barkov, who is, we'll see more of him visually in a few minutes, but he's kind of like a Turkmenbashi figure. Like, he actually looks a lot like, what's his name? Saparmat Niyazov, right, of Turkmenistan. Like, he actually looks like, there's some interesting stuff going on in terms of like how these different like types from the news media, but like from international headlines, and these figures are given back to you, but like the faces are somewhat similar, right? So you look, yeah, we're intercepting this Russian chemical shipment and preventing it from going to Urzikstan. And an interesting question is going to be what Urzikstan is and like what places it brings together, and we're going to get a lot out of asking that. All right. You'll note, like this also, like in the other game, one of the cool things they hit you over the head with was, wow, we built this big map. Here's a pair of binoculars. You can look across it. Boom. Here's what we're at now.
Vehicle, contractors, security, good targets. No Russian military presence. Call it in CIA.
Yes. Yeah. All right. So I'm going to call in an airstrike, and I'm going to. Yeah, the bad guys are. The others, the people who we're fighting, are like fungible, right? They're in this space where they're either like swarthily non-Western, right? And this is a game that uses the language of the West straight up. We're going to be fighting for the West in this game. That's what they ask us to do. That's what's under threat. Or they're like a weirdly alternately Aryanized and like Mongolized, like Slavic bad guy. In any event, like their ideology is completely secondary. Like some of them are sort of like Islamo-theocratic / Soviet nationalists. Like the nationalists they're Russian nationalists in this universe that are trading chemical weapons with Islamic fundamentalists, which again doesn't make any sense if you know anything about like recent like Russian activities like Chechnya or something. Like there's no coherence to it. They're all just images of bad guys that are layered on top of one another that only make sense if you understand the game as being staged for and from a perspective that centers the American one, right? And these are the traditional bad guys. They're Nazi Islamotheocrats, right? Okay, so anyways, here we go. We've just done this. I've got to go down there, and I get to commit again, much as in that other game. It's going to ask me to commit some more crimes.
Heads up. Multiple guns on foot.
Yeah. And really, people are calling like really cool like differences. Like, yeah, they're drones in this. Like, I don't think there are stealth games, stealth levels in any of the earlier CODs until World at War. That I may be wrong at that. I may be wrong. We'll be playing them, so we'll find out. But like the stealth, like again, you're not doing set piece battles. You're not storming Carentan. You're not at Omaha Beach. You're skulking through the bushes, doing Black Ops wet work. All right, this is what's going to happen here is going to be pretty fucking intense. Remember how in the previous thing we just played, we were given that Nazi prisoner, and I tried to execute him. It wouldn't let me pull the trigger, and then the game kicked me when I did fire a round off at the Commissar's head. Contrast that with what happens now.
Put them out of their misery.
Right? So in the other Call of Duty 2, which I think is the first of the series to do this, when you shoot people, Nazis, sometimes they'll be on the ground and they'll just be fighting till the last instant, and you can shoot them or they bleed out. Here we have these people whose bodies are graphically on fire because of like white phosphorus, wherever the fuck we just dropped on them. And they're mercs, they're mercenaries, right? So they exist in this liminal space. They're bad. We're operators, but we're not mercs. And I am executing them to put them out of their misery. Which I think I'm pretty sure is a war crime. Yeah. The fire is actually kind of, yeah, it's like visually, like, look, we've come a long way, right, clearly, but yeah. Yeah, that's right. People are pointing out, our friend GFTL is like, yeah, like, it's about sneaking up on people. It's about, you're specifically avoiding the thing that the other games are based around, namely waves of attackers. Here, if you do that, they come in and slaughter you. You don't want that. You want to, sneak up behind people, and actually, if you do the multiplayer, everyone has their own animations for a stealth kill. Like, the fetishization of stealth and the fetishization of sniping as a distance thing are both interesting. Like, there's something specific about, like, the American imaginary of, like, counterinsurgency warfare and of, like, being both one with, like, a place, but, like, hidden within it and better at traversing it than the locals that, like, Americans kind of fetishize. Let's see. All right, so it's, again, this is the first level where it's teaching me how to do stuff. Instead of having a commissar yelling at me, I'm just doing this. Taking them out. Lights. Also, you can... It's much smoother, obviously, but, like, again, like, I don't just mean that in the graphic sense. I mean that in the sense that, like, the game is really coming to its own about showcasing what is a signature thing, which is that you're fluidly moving through space. Right, in a very, it's like you're the gun, you're where the gun is pointing, and even when you're running and sliding, like you can do this cool like slide shit. Here, I'll see if I can get one of these going. Like even when you're doing like gun parkour, you're smooth, right? The guns are the real character in this game ultimately, but we'll get to that. Oh shit! Yeah, I think that's probably true. Yeah, this is another reason also why, like, one game that they... I think it's both a ideological and an engineering challenge that explains why there have only been, to my knowledge, there's only been a couple attempts to render, say, Vietnam in the first-person shooter genre, right? There's Battlefield Vietnam, which is a multiplayer thing, but there is and then there's the Call of Duty Black Ops franchise, which we'll get to, and you play during the Tet Offensive. But even then, like, there's a sense that because there aren't set-piece battles, that it doesn't respond well to the genre. But also, it seems, the jungles and whatnot don't render, but or harder to sort of engineer. But it also seems like, and when the series does go to Vietnam, you've got to be one of these badass operator types. You can't be... there's some sort of that comes too close to the... Like, I don't think you can gamify people falling into pits and getting killed by bamboo spikes in quite the same way, right? Right. Yeah. So I actually think that in Black Ops 1, or maybe it's Black Ops 2 when we play it, you do kind of get involved in the Phoenix program. We'll talk more about what the Phoenix program is. I'm much more on my own, like actually knowing what I'm talking about when it comes to the counterinsurgency stuff. Like, World War II, again, not my strong suit. So I'm grateful to everyone in the stream saying stuff about it. All right. So I'm going upstairs. All right. Oh, okay. What? Oh.
MG down. Enemy southwest of us.
Well, you know what? In some ways, the AI hasn't gotten much better. Like, those two guys just standing there pointing guns at one another. Okay, sure. I feel like they probably get that out of you in basic, but maybe they don't. All right, so we're going for the gas. This again, like, we're not fighting to defend the motherland. We're not fighting to overthrow Hitler. We are fighting to locate this illegal weapon. And this idea of the illegal weapon, the idea of chemical weapons, the idea of a type of war that is not acceptable within the laws of war is an animating theme of this game specifically, and I think it says a lot about ideologically where this game is at and the trajectory of the series. All right, so here we go. Yeah. So we're in 165 countries. I mean, like, that I know of, right? We have military, like, bases and whatnot, and we're actively. It depends on how you count it, but, like, yeah, like, we're basically we do like nighttime raids all over the planet at this point, right? So it's like the idea of gamifying an ongoing war as opposed to a war a half a century ago is itself a proposition that is worth thinking about. Oh shit. All right, I have a flashbang, which I think I can use. Let's see. Oh, what? What the fuck? I have no idea where... Sorry. I played this through before to get ready for it, but I don't quite know where I'm being shot from. Oh, I see. And not like, I'm blowing up boxes and papers are going everywhere. Okay. Mahatma fucking Gandhi. I don't even know what to say to that one. Yeah, Rainbow Six, there's biological warfare too. I think that has a crazy scene where they where you like there's a chemical attack in Vegas. Like there's a bit like this specific one thing that all these war on terror games are preoccupied with is what's the type of war that is not acceptable, right? What's the type of war that is savage, to use a language that's not mine, but also like outside the bounds of civilization, and that is in fact constantly threatening civilization, and which operators like this have to sort of get their hands dirty and make dark deals in shadowy rooms in order to keep at bay.
All clear. Let's get the power up.
And that's always symbolized ultimately, right, in much in the same way as, like, you know, America invades Iraq, because of WMD in this video game universe are the thing that nominally sets in motion and justifies the war, right? That's the thing that's, like, perpetually a threat. Yeah, there's gonna be a bunch of torture in this game. It's not good.
We got Russian Army KIA. We need to bug out now.
Negative. Command wants mission accomplished on this. Not our choice.
Never is. Yeah. 3-1 out.
All right, so yes, we found the gas.
Jackpot. PID in the gas.
Damn, that's some pure gas, man.
Solid copy, 3-1. Load up and get back to base.
Roger that.
Oh yeah, so our friend Laswell, who looks exactly like Ghislaine Maxwell, is someone, yes, is coordinating this. Again, she's a very, like, there is like a Kathleen Bigelow thing. She's like Jessica Chastain in that movie. Like, she's the woman who's very smooth and behind the operators in this weird way. Okay, so we're exfiltrating the gas. We have robbed the Russian base, and here we go.
All stations, we are Oscar Mike to the RV. Watch your sectors.
All right, everything seems like it's going fine.
Use the hook point for egress.
Yep. Oh.
Watcher to 3-1, how copy? Alex, do you read over?
I got you. I got you, 3-1. Shit. Who the fuck is this?
Yeah, they have all badass names. Oh shit, here we go. So yes. So we were, taking the gas from the Russians when we were attacked by insurgents speaking Arabic.
Watcher.
Alex, what happened?
Terrorist attack. Multiple Marines KIA. Gas stolen. We need evac now.
Roger. Tracking multiple Russian
Yeah.
ships headed your way. Sit tight.
It's super cinematic. And note how it pulls away. We were in Alex, the operator's first-person view, and now it pulls out. And look, Ghislaine Maxwell.
What the hell does that mean?
Means you no longer have clearance, Colonel.
Those are my Marines. We need a QRF in there right now.
That's not advisable.
And that is not your call.
Colonel, Laswell,
General, my men.
Norris, give us a minute.
Yes, ma'am.
We've got a situation. The Kremlin has
Here we go.
deconfliction channels. The Sixth Fleet is pushing into the Black Sea, and chemical weapons are now in the wild. Your fingerprints are all over this, Laswell.
Yeah, I think Ghislaine is probably alive. Yeah, I mean,
Right now, intelligence.
she seems to be, right? She's mounting litigation.
Get me a better weapon.
It wouldn't be this first situation where
As well.
she got out.
Where are you?
Occupied.
All right, here.
I've got a problem.
Russians?
How badass is this?
Travels fast. Chemical weapons have fallen into terrorist hands. They could be anywhere. Paris, New York.
London.
There you have it, right? What talk about a fake, too, right? We thought we were the first guy with the gun, but there was another guy with the gun sniping us.
Possible multiple attackers. Bombers or something worse.
Do we have snipers in position?
Negative, Sergeant. Can't unduly alarm the public.
Terrorists know that too, sir.
Garrick, don't turn London into a war zone, clear?
Yeah, Crystal. Out.
All right. Yeah, I don't know if Ghislaine is alive. Maybe she's watching the stream. Ghislaine Maxwell, I'd love to have her on the show.
Sergeant.
If I come out for that.
It's a white van.
The white van man. All right. So now we cut to London, right? And remember, in the previous games, in the classic ones, we're bouncing around different theaters of the Second World War as allies, right? Now we're, all right, here we go. We're in Piccadilly Circus, and boom. No, I could talk about a lot. There's Black Ops 2 the Black Ops series is like a very Epstein universe series. When we get to that, there's gonna be some weird shit. Okay, so if you tuned in when I was talking with Ajay last time, we were talking about one of the themes that came up is like, where does war get to happen in this universe? And one thing we could see these games as litigating is the place of war, right? War is supposed to happen in certain theaters. It's supposed to happen in places that look like a certain type of way, right? They're supposed to look like scenes from a World War II Hollywood movie. They're supposed to, they're supposed to look like Stalingrad, like burned out, like Soviet architecture with a little bit of like Onion Dome Orthodox churches on the horizon, or a bombed out French village, or they're supposed to look like Afghanistan, as we're going to see in a second, or they're supposed to look like, North Africa, which would have been the next chapter if we continue playing Call of Duty 2. What the modern games, what starts happening at a certain point in the Call of Duty like universe, within this 2 decades of producing entertainment for a world in a global war on terror that's constant, is there starts to be the games start to always include not just thematizing, but like depicting scenes in which war comes home. Right? A defining feature of, remember our basic like thesis here, right? The games start in World War II, that's a good war. Then they then after that they go into Iraq, like real-time stuff in the Modern Warfare franchise. And then as we enter the Obama era, they start going back and mining small wars of the 20th century, essential counterinsurgency war, and then by 2016, in a very paranoid mode. That's what the Black Ops like games are all about. It's like, I'm not kidding when I say they're like Epstein universe friendly games. Like they're really conspiratorial. They're like incredibly like feverish in their reworking of Cold War history and of like crime stuff, counterinsurgency stuff, etc. And then games fragment into the future by the time like Obama was president too. So we're fighting like near future resource wars and shit. And then the whole thing resets around 2016, basically with the election of Donald Trump, and suddenly we're back in World War II again. And this is the first attempt post that to reboot the Modern Warfare franchise, right? But one of the things that happens, and it's really striking, is that and the basic thesis that we're exploring here, is that the Empire, as war keeps on going on, the military entertainment complex eventually runs out of wars. It mines World War II for the great feels. As the war on terror gets worse, it turns to like the actual war it's being waged. But as that keeps grinding on, it has to go back to the 60s, to Vietnam, to like Nicaragua, to Angola. We're going to go to Angola. It's really fucked up what we do. But then also suddenly we start manufacturing fake terrorist attacks in the West, which this game is going to talk all about the West. And that becomes the casus belli, right? So one of the things that these games are struggling with and that they depict that both drives them is like the fear, but that they make a scene, like a site of action, is war coming home. Every single one of the modern games, war happens somewhere where it shouldn't. Namely, war happens in a place where we don't expect it to, but that we also start expecting it to, because that's what the series is all about. In Piccadilly Circus, in a subdivision in Bethesda, in a shopping mall, right? In an airport, etc. right? So that's sort of what we're going to do now. We're in Piccadilly Circus. We've ping-ponged around simultaneous to Alex and the friends and the operators getting like the gas stolen. We now have a terrorist attack in Piccadilly, right? And again, they're really showcasing the fire animation, lots of dead civilians. And yeah, they're just executing civilians. You may be seeing this, like... Yeah, it's exactly like the Paris attacks. There are, like... There's a weird... Well, here, this is almost a little more visually demanding. Yeah, you see, like, again, these guys are just fucking mowing down civilians. Oh, yeah, see, I did just hit a civilian, and the audio is like, don't hit civilians. But it keeps me going. Like, it lets... What's just as interesting in these games is not who you can shoot, but who the game will not let you shoot sometimes, right? And I just winged a civilian, and the game's like, don't do that. All right? This guy's got a name? All right. What the fuck? Okay. Yeah, I probably have a better... Oh, no, I'm just running off my SIG here. Okay, fine. All right. All right. And like you note the degree of, it's not like it's verisimilitude at the cost of realism, but like note all this like luscious textures, right? Like the books have names, yes they do. Weirdly, they're in French. All right, sorry. We're taking. I can't resist. We're in a bookstore. We're just gonna take a minute here. Sorry. Yeah. Okay. Fine. I know they need this, but Dictionary of History of Space. Okay. Sorry, folks. I just. Okay, well, all right. So, yeah, we've been, So, for whatever reason, the bookstore in Piccadilly is full of French books. Sure. Yeah, they're definitely not armed. Yeah, that's the thing. Like, I can't... Oh, shit. I can't straight up execute a civilian, right? Oh, shit! Okay, that happened. So yeah, you're about to... This is gonna get really fun. Oh! And also, again, like, if the games are all about fluidity and moving through space unimpeded, at some points, what the games get better at doing, and this is very interesting, I think, is impeding your movement to make you watch certain things. Right? To make you reel from explosions. Like, I was moving very well there, then there was that shockwave, my controller vibrated, and I couldn't move quite as well. But also at other points, the game will not let you, will make you watch atrocities happen. And actually, as we play through this one, which I want to keep doing, it'll let you play as a child. And a child picking up a gun. And it's very hard to do it, not just like emotionally, because like, you know, it's pretty fucking wretched stuff, but because the game makes it hard for you in terms of moving your little digital body. I was wondering about that too. Yeah. So I've deliberately avoided learning about some of the production process of this, but like, in the stream, folks saying this may have been deliberately initially set in Paris, much in the same way as the other, as we'll see. Urzikstan is a weird. Oh shit. Yeah. Sorry, that's a suicide bomber. He still goes off. Suicide bombers. that it may have been Syria and Russia, and then they changed it to a fictional country. But like, it's again, there's going to be some interesting like geography of where violence is allowed. That's going to be, and the way that geography is conveyed. Oh shit, is by. Damn. Okay, here.
You armed up? Yes, sir. Captain Price.
Sergeant Garrick.
All right. Price, who's actually an amazing voice actor. This guy is really good. Yes, and he is our primary protagonist here. You're going to play as Price, Alex, and Garrick, right? So it's going to be a trio of an SAS officer, like a SOCOM operator, and a British MI5, MI6 counterterrorist officer who I'm playing as now. All right, what's going to happen here is really fucked up. I'm not going to talk during it, but like, this is a very interesting exercise. I'm trying to keep things interesting, like thinking of things as being interesting as opposed to like just horrifying, because then, you know, there's more in it. But here we go. Oh, we're going to get something here. Yeah, the civilians don't get names, that's right. All right, folks.
I don't want to die. I want to go home. I want to see my family. I want to see my... Can you help him? I'm trying. Let me see my girl. It's going off. I can't get it. No time! Help me! Help me! Wait! What are you doing? No! All stations. Bomb is clear. Prep medical are coming up. Everybody stay calm.
I'll let that sort of sit for a second there. Yep. Yeah, so that happened. Right, yeah, so like there's these like...
Save lives today, Sergeant. This shouldn't have happened in the first place, sir. They sent us in half-assed.
It won't let me pause, but I'm gonna, yeah.
So everyone can just keep pretending we're not at war.
Yeah, like the fucking century, that is.
Why have we got our hands tied? Let's just take the bloody gloves off and fight.
The pureness of the ideology here, right?
Cool.
We don't stand a chance in hell with these rules of engagement, Captain. They can tell us where, they can tell us when. Don't tell us how. My men were tracking that cell for weeks.
You had actual intel on this?
Quite a bit, sir.
Yep.
Okay, Garrick. You're with me.
Yeah. Yeah, Price is basically he's like a Highlander figure, but Price is, there's a character, there's a way in which, like, okay, yeah. Switching theaters, now we're in Urzikstan, which looks like, I don't know, like Raqqa.
Well, he'll need the Liberation Force on his side, so have him contact the CR.
You know Commander Karim?
We're acquainted. Use my name, or they'll kill him.
What is your message from Captain Price?
Commander Karim. Call me Alex.
I'm listening, Alex.
This is classified.
Hello, Adami. Jazuli Halcon.
Yeah, there's a lot going on here. I can't pause during cutscenes. We're going to talk about this, though, as soon as I can, because there's a lot happening.
48 hours ago, terrorists stole a shipment of Russian gas.
Only Al-Qatala would do this.
The Russians make no distinction between Al-Qatala and your people.
And I make no distinction between Al-Qatala and the Russian army. They're both terrorists. We would never use these poisons.
Then help us track it before
Before they what? Take it to Europe? Or America?
Yeah.
We live like this every day.
Commander,
See,
who is this?
Alex, this is my brother and Lieutenant Hadir.
You are CIA?
He works with Captain Price.
Then you kill Russians, yes?
I have friends who can help us. But your sister decides what's next.
Of course. My sister is in command. And the Russian army is still here.
here's what she's going to say. Again, like...
Mission must end. That we can all agree on, yes?
Okay.
General Barkov's men control the city. We have plans to change that.
We have no missiles, but we have our ways.
If you stay, we can help you. But if you stay, you fight.
Yelling out to him.
Marhaba Ali Urzikstan, Alex.
Follow me.
Right, we got the music. Yeah.
These tunnels are our lifeline.
All right.
We have intel Russian troop commanders are in town today. We're going to ambush them.
So there's so much happening here. We'll just break it down real quick before we do the tunnel rat sequence. So the gas was stolen from the facility in Russia by unknown terrorists. The gas which was going to General Barkov, the Russian commander in control of occupying Urzikstan. Then we cut to Piccadilly Circus, where a group of unnamed terrorists, presumably Al-Qatala, actually I think they're identified as Al-Qatala midway through the sequence, being pursued by Garrick of the MI5, MI6, stage an attack. And we cut literally from an image of the orderly but now damaged skyline of Piccadilly Circus to the completely bombed out shell of a city in Urzikstan. Right? Now, there's a lot that's interesting here. And then we have the conversation between Kareem, her brother, and Alex, who is moved from this spot elsewhere in Russia and now is in Urzikstan. There's a ton of shit going on here. But yes, right off the bat, let's flag a bunch of these things. The intelligence officer is bitching to Price, who is the immortal character, or at least a repeating character, kind of the way characters repeating in Final Fantasy also, right? Of SAS operator badassery about how we need to take gloves off. We finally have to stop, right? But then we pivot, we get this image where it's Piccadilly is where war could happen, and then it's terror. But where war is happening and where it needs to be kept happening is this elsewhere of Urzikstan. Literally the two skylines are laid on top of one another. Then we get to Urzikstan and we meet the leader of the resistance, Kareem. Now they speak Arabic in Urzikstan, and they also have these headscarves that look like keffiyeh, but when you get a little closer, the pattern is different. They're basically like crate and barrel napkins of white and black stripes. Again, it's very and they're of course racialized. They speak Arabic. They look sort of like Middle Eastern in some vague way. And I'm not sure how directly these are modeled on actual people, but we get this with their racial that they're given an ethnic identity right in that space. The image of her, and I have screenshots that I'll share later as I went through this the first time. The image of her in this pseudo keffiyeh with the AK-47 and the PLO style garb, saying this occupation must end, is pretty striking in and of its own terms, right? It looks like an image from, the PLO, right? Say in I don't know, the 70s or something. But it is instead this woman, Kareem, who leads this organization, which is interesting. So she's a little bit like a YPG kind of thing going on, a weird, feminist, leading this resistance thing. And she's talking about how occupation is bad, and the American operator who looks like a Williamsburg bartender is yeah, occupation's terrible. Right? Again, this is about a fictional country, but it's using these images that are recycled, but those specific ideological terms. I'll spell this out. If you were to see an image of that, if I were to show you that picture of her with that headdress saying the occupation must end, you might be like, wow, that's some BDS stuff, right? But here it's shorn from that and put in this fictional world where Americans can endorse it, where she's a freedom fighter. What we're seeing here, and what's very interesting, is that we've moved from the sort of safe and totally histrionic territory of the World War II film to a ripped from the headlines, but also remixed and ripped from context pastiche of images from the modern war on terror, from the Palestinian occupation, from Afghanistan, from Chechnya, etc. It's all been put together and remixed to fit this basic architectonics of good guy, bad guy. There's some interesting stuff happening here. It's only going to get more so. So here we go. Yeah. Yes, there's definitely. So we're gonna see. There's gonna be interesting stuff. And we aren't gonna. We probably won't get that far tonight. I'm probably gonna go for another like 20, 30 minutes. But like, at a certain point, we start doing other missions, flashback missions in Urzikstan. And literally, the images are from like Khorasan, or they are from like northern Afghanistan. So like weirdly, it's kind of like Westworld or something, where there's like these different like small like ecosystem biomes for different people's amusement. The landscape of Urzikstan is a composite of Syria and like the Caucasus Mountains, like Georgia and Ukraine. Again, it really does seem to be saying war should happen in places that look like this. In so much that like there's an elsewhere that war belongs, and it looks like Syria, it looks like Ukraine, it looks like Afghanistan. And in order for war not to come to Piccadilly, it has to happen there. And in fact, the essence of war and the essence of what these games are all about is preserving that kind of hygienic boundary. Which again is very interesting insofar as that, but in order to underscore this, it has to create these fake locations. And I want to like think about that alongside also this other basic thing, which is the gameplay element, which is that these games are all about swift movement through space. Right? So there's something interesting going on about you as a first person moving through these spaces so quickly and shooting very quickly. And meanwhile, all these other spaces are very different aesthetically, but laid alongside one another and connected by virtue of the fact that you can move through them. And there's something about that, like an asymmetry of where war can happen, that these games both like aestheticize, but seem to like, they both undo and also affirm. It's very weird, and I don't quite know what to make of it, but I can't stop thinking about it, and I appreciate your being here to help us tease this out. All right. So this is, again, one of these points where the game, which is all about swift movement, is going to put us in a first-person perspective where we're going to move around, but we're going to have restrictions. We can't pull the gun because we're in disguise. And now we get to see, again, this is a crazy ideological pastiche, by which I mean that's exactly where I'm going with this, like the post-structural dimension. Like, we're about to get I'm using this term a lot, pastiche. I should gloss it, right? By pastiche, like, I actually, this is me. There's a cognitive load that comes from this actual streaming of these games where it's weird. It's like I have all these quotes handy and I keep forgetting them because, again, there's something about the full sensory experience of this is like wipes your brain of the rest. But yeah, a pastiche, and I'm using this here, which comes from an Italian pasta, so pasting, right? It's a patchwork of words, sentences, or passages from various authors or one author. It is therefore kind of imitation, right? Or even a parody. Right? So it's a putting together. A French thing would be like a bricolage, a taking of these different things and putting them together. And what's really interesting is that it mines this real world imagery to produce, to create, to affirm this like good guy, bad guy thing that's going on. So what we're going to get now, and we're going to walk out this door and see it, is we're going to get the fantasy image, a pastiche, of like life in Raqqa under ISIS, except instead of ISIS, it's the Russians. Don't ask me how that makes sense ideologically, but that's what, or like in a coherent way, but that's what it's going to give us as imagery. And as we walk around, I have to hide my gun, otherwise I'll get shot. It's going to feel horrifying. So yes, content warning again for what we're going to see here. Yeah, but these are Russian regulars. That's the thing. Like we've got like GRU troops, like straight. Like, these aren't like irregular fighters. They're straight up like. Yeah, it's like Russian anti-terror squads, and instead of like having like a theocratic bent or like doing like Salafi Takfiri or like neo-Wahhabist stuff, they're just talking about General Barkov who wants to protect Russia. So like again, it's a weird composite.
Barkov's forces occupy the entire city. They separate our men and women. They will be very strict. Their officers are coming.
No, you're right. No, you're not wrong. Like, this is good stuff. Like, I want to, like, please, yeah. Pedantry is good in this space. Like, I think, yeah. All right.
Punishment. For fighting back.
All right, so they're going to force her to get on the truck.
You'll need to comply to blend in.
And now I need to, again, what's very interesting in these games where the only thing you can really do is shoot is who the game doesn't let you shoot and who the game punishes you for shooting, but also what are the few things that you can do with your hands that are not shooting. And here, it's going to make me carry concrete blocks. Right? Yeah, the Russians are doing like ethnic cleansing and also like people trafficking, and yeah, this is like full. It's gonna get like Q level shit. It takes a little bit of time to go fully there, but yeah, General Barkov is sort of like a Left Right Beria figure in some other ways too. Like there's some sexual. You'll see.
Approach him slowly. Get his attention.
So here, oh. Yeah. Again, like, look, this is the Barkov stuff. Like, weirdly, it's not in Cyrillic, or it's not in Russian, it's not in Arabic. It's in this, right? Law and Order for All. So again, it's a pure like formalism, right? There's no flags for him. It's just like he represents order. He's the bad guy. He's like there's like a Turkmenbashi thing going on. Like he really does like look like Niyazov. Yeah, traitors are your enemy, right? Building a better this is the point where pastiche like gets into parody where it's like come on, right? It's like a Shepard Fairey like Barkov thing, like building a better like hope. All right, here we go. I mean, it does. Yeah, there's some more. Yeah. All right.
Can't go loud. Need a suppressor.
Find an oil filter. It will silence your weapon.
Okay. Yeah.
Civilian guards. I'll keep watch on the guards.
All right, so I'm gonna suppress my little pistol here.
That'll do it.
This doesn't actually work. Just for some reason, it's kind of weird that this oil filter is like threaded to fit a Colt 1945, but yeah, that's not how it actually works. Just a heads up. If you're suppressing any weapons ad hoc, don't do that. We're not parody alert, pastiche. We're not actually going to discuss how to home suppress weapons on the Twitch stream. That's not happening. But just don't do that. Alex blows his own face apart. Like, all right, here we go. Yep, someone's gonna give some advice there. All right, not gonna say that on video, but yeah. All right, here we go. Let's get these two guys and. Like, like you can see, like, compare this to what we were doing, like, the 15 years ago game, right? Like, there is a certain, like, the head bob is there, right? The shoulders are there. But, like, there's a weird simulation there element to it insofar as that, like, this is not what your actual, like, bobbing and weaving would look like. The game is simulating you're having a body, but not in any way that, like, there's a fluidity and a kind of, like, artificiality to it. Here we go. Oh shit. Yeah, sorry. So this game also allows, there's a little bit more like decision tree stuff. Like it's going to let us choose how to proceed through certain scenarios. I've done this before, so we're going to take the ways that I think are a little more interesting. Yeah. So I have to hide the gun again, and here we go. Okay, now again, remember, ISIS, but it's the Russian military. Oh shit, you see I alerted them. I'm on myself gonna... Oh, there we go. All right, well, it happens. Yeah, that's right. Like there's a type of like... deadened sensorium, where it's like, just here are these images of trauma that are happening elsewhere in the world, and we're gonna vacuum it up and assemble it in a way that's like aesthetically moving, but that essentially shears off any ideological context, any political context, and gives it back to you as entertainment and raw emotion. So yes, we're going to witness something that looks like it probably was like snapped on someone's cell phone at great risk in Raqqa, except now it's a video game, right?
What is this? Please, she's just scared. Stand down. I know what you do. Do you understand why we do these things? They hang because they killed our soldiers. Now look at them.
Let's get moving.
We live peacefully, but only if we help each other.
This is a goddamn war crime.
Who caused this pain for all of us?
Stolen gas. Doctor blames us for stealing it.
What can we do?
I can't.
Accomplish our mission and put an end to
There will be many more war crimes, and we will commit many of them. There's like, yeah. All right.
through here, up the ladder. Barkov is sending in helicopters.
That's right, Argo. Yes. It's like some Iranian Revolution stuff. All right, I'm gonna blow up these helicopters. All right.
Set explosives on the helicopter. I'll cover you. Guards get in your way. Take them out. Quietly. Meet back here when you're through.
All right, I think I can pick up another handily convenient suppressor from like a car, and out of my other one here. I'll do this very quickly. I was able to do this the other day. How do I do this again? This is not that hard. Oh yeah, there we go. There we are. Yeah, I'm pretty sure there. I don't. I think disguising yourself as a civilian may be a war crime. Again, like it's very unclear what actually is a war crime in this universe. Like clearly some things are, but like what distinguishes that? Like this is gonna become a major plot point when we go through this. And actually, like I want to. The more and more I'm thinking as we proceed with this stream, I want to keep going back to the most recent one because I think it's the most interesting ideologically, or at least the most urgently relevant. But what constitutes a war crime seems to be purely a function of the fact that we call it that, which certain like theorists of international law would probably argue is what it always is. But yeah, here we go. Let's see. I think I can go up here. How do I do this? Okay, sorry. Yeah, I don't even think I need to stealth it. All right, we're gonna blow up these helicopters.
Two down. Still looking for a way up.
Again, it's very weird that there's like high-end like sites laying around, but whatever, sure.
I'm at the target.
All right.
These oil filters work well.
Charge set. This will make one distraction.
That's the plan. Now get to the other helicopter.
All right, so the other helicopters over there. I've sat through the entire speech Barkov makes here. At no point, it's all just generic. Also, yeah, I will not be defeated by citizen soldiers. That means, like, that means something to Americans, right? The citizen soldier mythos is very definitive for us. But, like, that, come on. Like, a Russian is not going to be saying, like, that doesn't make sense. Like, citizen soldiers, come on.
Use the stairs.
There's a dog here. I don't know if it'll let me kill it. Let's find out. Okay, yeah.
Stop. There's a guard. Top of the stairs, left side.
Yeah, I think that's right. The hardcore bit there, where it's like, yeah, like so we're gonna. This is going to become the major plot point, and actually one of the things that's so like bottomlessly cynical about this series, or that's so like queasy and complicated about it, is that a lot of what you think and like correctly think of are its ideological problems. It will just go out and own as virtues. Right. So as I was talking to you a few minutes ago about that like dialectic of trade-offs, like here's where war belongs and here where war doesn't belong, and here are the rough men that police that boundary. Literally, Price was like saying like this can't happen here, right? And Garrick was like, but it keeps on happening here, and we have to stop it. It thematizes that. It owns it. This is also going to become a plot point here later, where one of the major things that splits, that reconfigures the good guys and bad guys in this game specifically, is going to be the question of who uses gas or not. And right when you start thinking, wow, that's handy, because then like that means that these are clearly, that's the bridge too far that allows us to finally mow down the waves of bad guys. Price himself will be like, well, in war you have to have rules, and if you don't, like you can do war without being like losing your soul. Like it's going to give it to you again as a virtue. Like it's going to own that constructiveness as being good. It's really, they clearly thought one step ahead of most critiques and then no further. And that's, again, it's like a pseudo depth. It's a pseudo profundity, much in the same way as a lot of these like war and terror movies always have a moment where it's like, God, torture is really bad. We're going to feel bad about it. Is it worth it? I don't know, but we got to do it anyways, right? It's a weird gestural type of thing that's it doesn't actually add any depth, but it's sort of like gestures at it. All right, here we're gonna blow up this other helicopter.
Charges set.
Regroup on my position.
All right, here we go. All right, we're going to blow up both these guys.
We're clear. It's time.
Again, like, the United States and the UK are bad guys for this Russian, like... All right, we're going to blow this up. Here we go. Woo! Yep, that's right. About the neoliberalism of this. Like, we're just, like... There is something really, like... Yeah, I don't want to spoil it, but this is going to...
Hold your fire.
Just keep this in mind as, like, a fairly recent thing that this like, 2 decades into it, like, we've had to... we keep doing these reboots. Like, I said earlier, like, history actually does end for the Empire, but the wars keep going on. That's like the odd paradox of this. Like, these games represent a kind of sterility of the imperial imagination. Okay, here comes the ambulances, right? We're going to do another war crime.
Come, under the truck. More are coming. Follow close.
Yeah, keep remembering, it's gonna, the thing that you are thinking, oh, that's bad and fucked up, it's gonna then be like, oh, we know it, but but your ability to think that is vouchsafed by our doing this. It owns it, which is again a really, that seems right. It seems to follow kind of logic. After 2 decades of endless war, you no longer are doing pastiche or going backwards. Instead, you're like, you're doubling down in this way, even as you reboot it. It's very, oh shit, okay, boom. I think we may have blown up the ambulance there as well. Sure, that's fine. All right. All right, here we go. But in case, again, we were just wondering, oh no, we just did a war crime, this is very bad, don't worry, the game is now going to show us another war crime that the bad guys did. That's always, whenever you do something fucked up in this game, and believe me, we're gonna torture people, we're gonna have the opportunity to kill kids, like, it's gonna be fucking intense. There will be a bad guy within the next scene or two who will show up and torture people worse, who will kill more children, etc. And it's all, there's never any causal link. Right? It's not like you're making them ratchet up. It's never like there's a war of escalation. It's always a post hoc ergo propter hoc justification for why you have to be doing this. Okay, so here we go.
What the hell is this?
One of Barkov's war crimes.
Yeah, there's a weird sexualization of her too. Like, I don't think so we're allowing. This is another trope within the more recent Modern Warfare games. Oh shit. You have to hide in grass as like tons of troops walk around you. But yeah, like, I have not actually finished the single player of this, but it does keep on teasing a kind of like eroticism between Alex and her specifically.
That was risky.
We're in a hurry.
I like your style. Very efficient. To the tunnel, quickly. More may be coming.
Right, here we go.
Reinforcements from the airbase. Our plan is working.
Here we go.
Stop.
Mm-hmm.
Shit. Tarek's door is open.
Where's Tarek?
All right, they got Tariq.
He would never abandon his post. Let's go. Clear. Let's head down. Get to Hadir.
All right, so we'll go back to Hadir.
You lost good people today.
That is the cost of this war. Now let's take Barkov's airbase, so their deaths are not in vain.
We're in for a hell of a fight.
So are they. Hadir has a plan.
All right. So, I don't want to. Yeah, I want to like. I don't want to like. Oh yeah, here we are. We're gonna do an assault on the airbase, and then I'll. Yeah. Again, note like they're using the Hellfire cannons. Like it's like they're like the YPG sometimes. At other points, they're like.
I told you we have our ways. No grenades, so we improvise.
Yeah. Now we're back in the first person here.
Fight this war with sticks and stones.
Yeah, these are the moderate level rebels. Oh yeah, we're gonna get white helmets in this game. Well, I don't even know where to start. Like, there are barrel bombs, there's white helmets, there is a Benghazi. You will briefly play sort of as the child from that viral photo of the child pulled from rubble in Syria. There is going to be chemical warfare. There's going to be a repurposing of like Haditha, the massacre. There's going to be a repurposing of the Highway of Death from Gulf War I, which is here going to be blamed on the Russians. There's going to be a scene in this game where you play as a child killing an evil Russian like naval officer, commando, Spetsnaz type, whose name is literally Minotaur and who looks like a bodybuilder. Like, this game is complete pastiche bonkers. It's going to take everything and it's going to harvest all this imagery from the headlines, from the fever swamps of the American conservative imaginary, from like, it's all be in defense of the West too. Like, there's some elements here that like read like stuff from like, I don't know, like The Sun or something. It's going to put all these things together. There's going to be some organ trafficking. There's going to be some human trafficking shit. And it's going to stick this all together and plunge you into it. And I don't want to spoil it because I want us to work through it together because it's like the weirdness of it and the intensity of this is sort of overwhelming. But what it seems to basically ask us to do is to decide, is to ratify our own position as the people who, through waging counterinsurgency war, are going to police the boundary between good war and bad war on the one hand, but also between where war should belong and where it shouldn't. And the craziness of that is that at its basic form, and this is like where I'm really starting to buy into this as another thesis about this series, it's going to give us this basic friend-enemy distinction, which, when you get it down to its bare essentials, seems super fascist. Right? There's a kind of micro-fascism, or like a fascism of self and other, and of the need to like police that boundary. Oh, you're going to get waterboarded too. Markov's going to waterboard you. It's going to gamify waterboarding, and then there's going to be a point at which he's going to make a joke about gamifying waterboarding. Like, so if we want to be like, I'm going to fly this plane in a second, but like part of what happens here is, yeah, it's about maintain. Okay, amazing, psychologist, awesome. Like, it really is about maintaining a hygienic boundary between, like, there's an abjected, like, shit world where violence happens, and we have to stay pure. And it really is going to be about, like, maintaining the boundaries of the West. Like, the operator is, like, changing the diaper of Western civilization, and it's some Camp of the Saints shit. It's like some like Steve Bannon stuff. Like it's fundamentally reactionary in this way, but part of the way the game makes itself thinkable or tolerable is that it appropriates images of conflict elsewhere such that you are always siding with the oppressed. Right? The rebels in Urzikstan look like the PLO, you know, like, or like the ANC, or like or like the moderate rebels, or like the white helmets. Like it's like, again, none of which you're expected to like know either, but it takes these vague images and these tropes and then it makes them good. Here we go. Boom. Yeah.
Let's get down there.
Airbase perimeter is dead ahead. Second team will cover us with the cannon.
Yeah. So like what like the thesis I kind of have here, right, is that like if these games exemplify like if that when we can break it down by presidencies, right? If the Bush era games, or at least the first Bush era games, are about reselling the war on terror as in light of the Second World War, and then the Obama games are like a kind of like crazy Urzikstan and Jesus Christ are like a weird QAnon conspiratorial, stabbed in the back, like global good bad post-traumatic stress as plot device, sort of like fever dream. The Trump era games are, in the guise of rebooting the franchise, essentially also and giving back like the full and showcasing the sterility of like this imperial imagination by mining it, are also in a weird way, or in a probably an inevitable way too, like a luxuriating in the full perversion of it. Like, this is as decadent as the series gets. And it does seem to, again, sort of point to how, like, after 2 decades of this war, what the Empire has left is a purely aestheticized, like, economy of signifiers and images of trauma that are constantly present as a reservoir of entertainment, right? And it just floats above actual events. Here we go. Okay, so here we go. I'm just gonna blow through again. Like, also the core gameplay is still here, right? We just like tear through it. Like, I'm not sure. I actually am not entirely. Yeah, I kind of feel like using Molotov cocktails is probably also not like sanctioned by the laws of war, but you know, yeah. All right. All right. So it's gonna keep giving me like this little game mechanic where it's like I can fly these RC planes. Ah. Oh, that's a good point. Yeah, I think the actors, like Hadir may actually, I'm curious who plays Hadir. There's also like a slight Liv Schreiber thing going on with him at some points. All right, here we go. All right, here we go. Again, like, it's really super fluid, right? Good crash, like... Jesus Christ. There is an Iranian Call of Duty knockoff, which I really want to play. That will require setting up like a gaming PC to do it. But like, yeah, like an interesting question here is how much this genre is specifically tethered to America, and how much like again like other national gaming industries have used it as a pastiche or have put it to other ideological purposes. Here, let's see if I can. There is something ultimately grindy about like a lot of these levels. Here we go. So. Oh, that's right. So yeah, like people were talking about the reboots. Yeah, nonlinear dynamics. This is exactly right. Like the other like it is a type of repurposing of trauma into an enjoyment. What's also really crazy about that, and I'm picking up what you're laying down and just like affirming it, is that the plot line for it, for the reboots, right, is structured around post-traumatic stress flashbacks, right? And it becomes a completely like bonkers story of like paternity and sons who get lost, like multiple generations of like badass and solitary kind of incel-ish but still reproducing operators and their operator kids, right? Like there's something going on that's like it actually does like it thematizes the PTSD. Here we go. Oh, this is amazing. We're gonna Dan is fucking rolling and pulling stuff into Discord. God bless. But yeah, like okay, this is exhausting. Like cognitively, like here we go, okay. Again, there's at a certain point, even when the graphics are like amazing, there's very little to the game beyond like moving around and just mowing things down, right? And it's, but also like you can see like look at the animations there, like they're tossing one of their rifles, like it's only 15 years after the other game, but like the graphics are amazing. Like the degree of immersion is much higher. All right, I will take sure. I'm walking around with a drum-fed automatic shotgun that probably weighs like 100 pounds, but sure. There's some references here to like the Expendables that are going on. Like this is, oh, fuck me. No. No. Oh, this Frycore stuff is fascinating. Yeah, I'm okay, folks. I just like I want to like again like if like the triple evils are like militarism and empire and like poverty and whatnot, like the idea of Martin Luther King being quoted in a Call of Duty game is just like I don't even know, you know? I don't even know. Oh, fuck. We're gonna finish this assault at the airport, and then we'll call it an evening. Boom. Oh, shit. I see, like, again, they're women freedom fighters, right? I think they're maybe a full 50-50, right? So there is, like, they're kind of YPG-esque. Okay, that's where I'm going. Well, I'll also say the obvious thing here too, where it's like there's a very clear like white savior thing going on. Like for whatever reason, the YPG like has to tell you to go get the guns. Like there's no like they clearly are. Why they couldn't do this themselves? It's a little unclear. All right, let's do this with the shotgun thing here. Here we go. Oops. No, I want that. Come on. Oh, that's right. Yeah, the rebels are using me for plausible deniability. Like I'm here as like a yeah. I'm if I get taken out, I'm a trainer. I'm building capacity. There we go. Oh shit. All right, I can take out the helicopter here. Again, like, the gameplay is, like, it's... A lot of it's very fun, right? Like, I can... And then it cuts to, like, the Jerry Bruckheimer, like, explosion scene. Like, it's... The kinetics are there. Like... This gun is incredibly overpowered. And the bodies go flying in all sorts of different directions, right? There's like a real... Everything is moving. There's... Weirdly, you're not quite as fast in the single player as you are in the multiplayer. Jesus Christ. This thing is absurd. Oh! Okay, well, me and my... Okay. Again, like, what the fuck does that mean? Favoring anarchy over... It doesn't mean... Like, it's like a couple headlines from those first set of books, like the popular explaining, like, what is ISIS? Or, like, a Time magazine thing, like... They favor anarchy, right? Like, what the fuck? What does that actually mean? It's very unclear. But also know that there's like a weird overlap where we're not just getting historical quotes anymore. We're not even just getting inspirational quotes from MLK or Gandhi or David Petraeus. We're also getting in-universe stuff about the characters. Yeah, that's like the thing there. Like, yeah, that's exactly right. It means that they're not like... They're not going to give us hotties, right? They're going to dance around the fact that, like, they're just bad. Don't think too hard about whether or not they have any religious grievances. Like, they just want evil. And, like, when we will have a couple sequences where the leader of AQ, the Wolf, is going to explain things to us, like what his motivations are, and they literally are just... about like decadence and the West being bad. It's also interesting too, by the way, that the game started with the Wolf making a statement, and his statement was that it wasn't about faith. It was about getting the West from our lands, right? Which is again a weird. It's very schizoid. There's a real dissonance there because, like, if you actually, you know, I've got a copy of Osama bin Laden's speeches over here, right? If you know what the guy had to say, and like he was my understanding is very accomplished stylist in modern standard Arabic. Voltaire. Oh, for Christ's sake. Okay. That distinction between faith, which also is a very Christian category, and getting the Westerners from their land is not like... That's not a distinction from that, like, Salafist Takfiri perspective, right? Like, the presence of U.S. troops in Saudi Arabia in their land, so to speak, is a religious affront. So there's a kind of shell game that this series plays where it's like, well, just when you think the bad guys are religious, no, actually, they're nationalists and irreligious. Just when you think they're communists, no, they're nationalists. Right? It's a completely flexible bad guy that's purely positional. Or rather, it's positional in the sense that it's not you, and that's also signaled by these gestures. That they're swarthy, that they carry AK-47s, that they live in a place that looks like a place where you see violence on the news. There's no there. It's just a purely reflected... It's a correlate to the fact that you can point a gun at them. Kind of, to put it very bluntly, correctly. I was reading some of the Vasily Grossman on the Vasily Zaitsev, the sniper that is fictionalized in Enemy at the Gates, and in the game we played earlier. And one of the things that Grossman has Zaitsev tell him is about his sort of like how he starts to experience as pleasure spurts of blood from the Germans that he's shooting, and that and specifically shooting them in the head results in a kind of explosive effect, right? And there is something going on in this game specifically too about the way that it's gore, but it's like a type of it's like that, like in this, like Akira Kurosawa samurai movies, right, where they slash one another open, and there's a sudden jet of like a very like an you feel like these people are under incredible pressure on the inside, and some of the blood just squirts like a fire hose. It's like that, and there's a real cult of like the headshot, as people have pointed out in many of these games, where like they give you a specific death animation when you hit someone in the head. There's something there too about the covering of the face and the exploding of the heads that's probably like a Kleinian analyst might have something to say about. Yeah.
Alex, jump to me.
Yeah, they're agents of chaos. Like the AQ is just bad. Like it's much in the same way as like I can't even begin to say how. I read several books on ISIS a couple of years ago, and like. The amount of like even the like major books, but also like popular media that would just be like, no, they don't even believe in anything. Like, and which is an interesting thing to say. Like they're not as firm in their beliefs as Al Qaeda. Like, well, what does that mean, right? A lot of which seem to be coinciding with the fact that like Western forces did start actually working with Al Qaeda against ISIS. So it's kind of again, it's hard not to feel like a lot of these like tropes of describing the other, not just in video games, but in more like respectable and sophisticated media, are just about shaping your expectations vis-a-vis who your latest ally is supposed to be. Yeah, that's right. Yeah, the blob, the foreign policy blobs, like the establishment, like the generic think tank / like 17 intelligence agencies we have in this fucking country, like that type of soup of alphabets. Like suddenly, like, no, here's the new big bad, right? The new big bad guy. Again, it's a very video gamey thing. Like, who's the next bad guy? All right, here we go. Yeah, I'm going to stick with that shotgun because that was actually super fun.
We're going to get boxed in.
All right, there's going to be one last shootout here. I have this enormous grenade launcher. I will say, and this is... being honest with you all, like the gunplay is fun in these games. Like this is exhausting. This is like an endurance sport, like a cognitive exercise. But like the guns, like each one feels a little bit different. They're responsive. The animations are lively. The vibrations on the controller are different. There's a very like embodied pleasure in this. Okay, now I can call an air support. Oh, I'm going to play as the pilot now. Okay, yeah. Yeah. The other is not political in this. Like it's like they represent what they want to do is they want to make they're somehow responsible for what's happening in their country. It's never us, right? And they want to make Syria look like they want to make Piccadilly look like Urzikstan. Right? They represent this purely negative force. Okay, here we go. Again, I'm just getting heat signatures here, like this is pretty fucking intense, right? This is like that Collateral Murder WikiLeaks video in more ways than one. I can alternate between different munitions here, and yep. Again, like this is the type of thing where it's like first off, it's pretty fucking crazy that like we have a straight-up Apache helicopter killing Russian troops in this country called Urzikstan, yet somehow there's a plot point that America and Russia can't yet go to war. This is definitely an act of war, right? So, like, there is this weird thing where it's like, okay, so now it's giving me a choice. I can choose to disengage, or I can pursue the people running. Again, it's like, do you want to commit a war crime? I've played this before, and I let them go away. I'm going to not disengage, and we're going to see... Oh, it's going to let me disengage. But I can keep shooting if I want. Yes, I can do that. Okay. And it says nice. Again. So yeah, I just so it'll let me stick around and mop up by killing people fleeing the battlefield. God, these quotes are amazing.
So you do kill Russians. Only the bad ones. Today was a
Yeah, the Modern Warfare 2 has one where you're in like a C-130 and you choose between different munitions. Yeah. Okay, Barkov will retaliate.
Alex and Commander Karim's forces have destroyed General Barkov's forward operations base, temporarily limiting Russian air capability in Urzikstan. We need to move fast.
All right, folks. Here.
Thanks to your intel.
Yeah, I'll show you this, like, give you a taste of what's coming next. Because I think this one's the most interesting one here. Okay.
3 SAS teams will get inside and connect the dots. If the Wolf is in possession of the stolen Russian gas in Urzikstan...
Actually, this is pretty interesting. So I'll give you just a quick taste of this here.
Maybe non-combatants on target. Check your shots.
Yeah, that's right. So now we're cutting back, and we're going to do door kicking in London. And it's giving much, whereas the other games are all about, like the World War II games are like, here are different scenes of theaters that you may recognize from movies, from TV shows, whatever. Here we're going to get here are different scenes from the ubiquitous war on terror that you may recognize from the news, right? And so now we're back in London with an extremely ethnically diverse team. Here. And now again, like, we're back in the space of not war. I remember actually a whole bunch of articles. I keep on trying to find this one that was written about like the genesis of the operator as a concept. This is like 2008, 2009. And what the author very pointed out, and I don't remember her name, was that her contention was that the image of the operator, like the grizzled American soldier / mercenary / deniable, like counterinsurgency warrior / special operations, like counterintelligence wet work dude, is the dialectical opposite of the Ghazi, the holy warrior, right? And that both of those things in like this particular Slavi Takfiri tradition, and that in both cases there's those positions, the role of like the terrorist warrior and the terrorist, Islamo-terrorist. I'm not endorsing this. I'm just using this etic language here, rather the emic language, the language of this discourse. I'm not ratifying it. That both that and the operator represent a logic of space. And it's interesting thinking about that, like, because like a lot of the stuff that, again, reading these early, like explaining Al-Qaeda, explaining ISIS books, a lot of them would always be like, well, in Islam, again, this is bullshit, there's like a world of peace, there's a Dharma, and then there's a world of war, like the Dharma al-Hajj or Dharma, whatever it is. I don't have Arabic. But like this idea that like this religion is this distinction between places where war can happen and where it can't, and that these holy warriors make that happen, is paradoxically also applicable to this vision of the West and to its warriors. So here we are. We're going to quickly like walk through his home. I'm going to do this now because there are children and there are women involved in this, and I just want to show you what this is like, because the rest of the game is much more like this. Yes, that's the one. Thank you. Yep. Oh, I want to plug this, like, police action. Yes, there's the police action stuff is interesting. There's a little bit in Black Ops. I'm going to plug this also. I'll plug a book by my friend, but just because it's a really, really good book. Where is it? And this actually, particularly now as, like, Minnesota, as, like, Minneapolis burns. This book is amazing. Badges Without Borders. I'm going to have Stuart on, and I'll tell you all that, like, I think what we're going to do is, like, we'll record video gameplay, and then I'll send it to people because I don't want to necessarily make them play if they don't. But Stuart Schrader's history of counterinsurgency policing and counterinsurgency war is phenomenal. And I cannot recommend this more highly, particularly because it's all about, like, inner city policing in the U.S. and how that is created in conjunction with learning how to, like, do Operation Phoenix in Vietnam by the same people. Like, people, like, design both these things. Here we go. Okay. So we're... Oh. Here. Boom, boom, boom. Killing people in this, like, living room here. So again, like, it's gonna... If the games are all about fluidity, right? Al-Qatala male, right, is what the bad guys are called. At some points, it makes you not be fluid, right? So here we go. Pop in these night vision goggles. And it's making me slowly walk up in formation. Right, Al-Qatala female. All right, here we go. So what? This is again. It's gonna be fucked up. Like heads up, folks. So he's taking her hostage. I'm gonna take him down. All right, and then boom. Wait, she goes for a gun, and now I have to shoot her. And this is going to be replicated, too. We're going to be doing another mission in the same game later that's basically another night raid in a house. And except it's going to be in Afghanistan. All right. Jesus Christ. All right, here. I don't recall if there are children in this level or not. There are definitely a bunch of ones where you have to not shoot children. Yes, that's right. It's the inversion of Alex pretending to be a civilian. That's right. That's exactly right. That's exactly right. Like, Alex gets to pretend to be a civilian, but when the Al-Qatala males, like, are in their home, they're not civilians, they're taking women as hostages, and the civilians who they take as hostages are actually bad. That's right. That's exactly right. Oh, shit. That's probably not, like, allowed for doing this. Oh, shit. Oh, damn. Like, look, there's blood on the floor here. Like, it's intense as hell, right? There is a strong Zero Dark 30 element to this. Like, it's very much like, actually, that bit where, like, Jim from The Office, like, smokes a young woman in that sequence. Kind of a horrible thing. That's right. He's a soldier pretending to be a civilian in a war zone. These are soldiers pretending to be civilians in the suburbs. That's exactly right. That's sharp as hell. Three-toed. That's exactly right. Here we go. I don't know if you can hear this. The unknown. Now we're getting an unknown female as opposed to an Al-Qatala female, and she's essentially begging her partner to either flee or give up, or for them to die together. And also, I don't know if you can hear it in the audio, we're getting a baby crying. I don't actually have it in me to figure out, to test if the game will let me kill a woman and her baby. I suspect it might. Yeah. But I guess I have to kill her partner in front of her, which is pretty fucked up. All right, last floor here. Up.
Locked. I've got it. Try and take him alive.
Get down! Don't shoot! Don't shoot, please!
She's gonna go for a gun. You know it.
Drop her.
Stop!
Clear.
Right. She seems plausible. She seems good. She seems, and then you have to fucking mark her. All right. And they're all these, and of course, like they're surrounded by bombs, right? So this was all good because they were about to do something worse, right? Oh yeah, she was good. And here we go. In case you were having qualms about shooting that woman, right? She was moving towards the table for a detonator.
She was going for a bloody detonator.
Good job we dropped it in.
We made the right call, sir.
Bet your ass. We got a location on a wolf.
So yeah, Price, who is this like avuncular, paternal person, is like, don't worry, it was good, right? It's
to Ramaza Hospital in Urzikstan, where the Al-Qatala leader is believed to be holed up.
yeah. All right.
Forces will track terror activity at the hospital, while a Marine ground force can be mobilized to advance on the complex. Echo 3.
I'll stop here because basically what's going to happen then is that we're gonna mount a full scale like assault on a hospital, and we're gonna have to go through and prevent them from killing people in the hospital. But we're gonna kill people in the hospital ourselves, and it's
The hospital is under siege. Al-Qatala has taken civilians as human
here.
shields. They're protecting.
We're gonna shoot through quite a few of those civilians.
Tomorrow we find out.
All clear, sister.
Yes.
Hadir is my best sniper. You can rely on him. And all my fighters.
We just want their pound of flesh. I'm leading the charge on this.
Yeah, there's a like the two things people are pointing out here. Like, yeah, it is.
I don't do this to keep my word.
Okay, here.
The invaders of my country.
Here we go. This is so key.
The gas kills all things, even food and our gardens. If you use these tactics, you are my enemy.
No exceptions?
None. Al-Qatala has given my people a bad name, and we have paid dearly for their crimes. I want to see the wolf punished.
I'll make sure you're at the embassy for the handoff to Price.
All right.
And you? Where will you go when this is over?
Wherever they send me.
You don't choose.
Not exactly.
Rest up. Tomorrow's a big day.
What about you and your men?
We'll be here until sunrise.
I'll cover the open corner.
Yeah, the facial expressions, like again, like this is properly cinematic, right? All right, we'll stop it there. But like, what I wanted to like also underscore that what just happened there in this dialogue, right? That's of interest. Skip this and just pause. Is she? Yes, that there's the specificity of targeting, right? This being said in the stream, like there's this idea that much in the way as like as Tony Stark puts on the like Iron Man apparatus that can differentiate magically between civilians and humans, like civilians and like humans. That's a parapraxis between civilians and enemy, right? There's this idea here that the operator is sufficiently badass, has the right kit. Somehow they're making these decisions in the right moment, and they'll turn out okay in the end. There's another thing that's going on here too, which is the gender dynamics of this. Like, it's nuts that Kareem is like, she is a pink-washed, like, YPG. She cares about the gardens. Like, she's a woman in charge, right? She's a boss lady. Simultaneously, also back on the American side, we have like Ghislaine Maxwell. I'm sorry, like Karen Laswell or whatever the fuck they're calling her. She's in charge of the CIA, and the woman who's and the person the military officer in charge of the base is not just a woman but a black woman, right? There is a kind of specific like very superficial but significant diversity that's happening in terms of that like representation. Also note the other thing that this is like one I want to close on and we're going to keep on returning to is I think next week I'll have a guest, I think, but we'll see. But a key theme that we're going to keep on coming back to is this idea of there must be some type of war that's out of bounds. And that's about tactics. It's not about goals. And here it's the chemical weapons. No, and this is going to be a big plot point in the rest of the game. Farah Kareem saying, people who use such tactics are my enemy. Whoever uses the gas, they're out of bounds, right? They're beyond the pale. This is the repeated sort of conceit of the series, even as it gets more and more decadent, even as it wallows in like moral extremity for its own sake. There's always going to be some bridge too far that's where you have like the Mulvian bridge stand. That's where you can't let them get any further. That's where simultaneously you're tearing with it. It touches you. It corrodes you. But you have to stand there because if we go over, then we're just like them. Right? So there's a kind of minimal difference here, which is a paradox, a dialectical paradox, where it's like we're constantly fighting them because if we don't, we become them, but also fighting them makes us more like them. Right? And that, I think, is also what someone very astutely said in the stream, too, about like the people like Alex in civilian dress versus civilians who are actually soldiers. Right? This fungibility of actual mutual dependence of good guys and bad guys is sustained not just by the bad guys doing worse and worse stuff, but by the good guys saying that no matter how low we go, they will always be worse. Right? Which is, again, a type of like death spiral. And it's interesting that that's where this series goes. So look, I'm just going to quickly glance at the stream. But yeah, like, yeah. I'm going to, so we're going to put these like articles that are here in this. Yes. Chekhov's chemical warfare agent. Yeah, there is a weird celebration of the CIA here. Like, it's kind of like actually Black Panther, right? Where the CIA agent is just a nice guy. He's here to help, right? Like, he's a good guy. And they're like, we love you. Like, you help us out. It's very, again, it's counter-historical. Like, it's not just like, it's simultaneously undoing the history, but like taking the historical imagery and then giving it back to you as entertainment in a way that actually like erases it. Yeah, and that's the other thing. Is the tear gas stuff. Stewart has two chapters in here on tear gas, and maybe actually I'll cue that up for next week, particularly some Minnesota stuff. Probably will still be going on, and Lord knows we're probably going to see. Well, I won't bring that here, but I think there's going to be much more of that over the summer, and so I want us to be thinking about these things as we do it, because like again, like one of the consequences of this like war elsewhere, war here, is that the warriors who police that boundary, and I use that word deliberately, become police, and the soldiers, the warriors, the warrior cops and cop-like warriors abroad. And again, it's a weird thing where insisting on the difference actually produces a type of dissolution into the two of one category into another. Yep, women are civilians at home and war fighters abroad. So yeah, the Discord, we're setting it up. We will we'll have a link below here. We're still learning these things, but we will have a Discord. Because we want to have like we want to have these articles like linked to. There's also, I will say, that was just like some housekeeping stuff. What I've been doing, thanks to Dan's producing videos and me like finally like getting the hang of this, is I'm putting out on a weekly basis. I'm catching up this weekend bibliographies for each of the episodes with links. So if there are articles, if there are lecture videos, if there are histories or anything else like that, online archives that I cite, I'll have a paragraph, like 500-600 word rundown of everything we go through in any given episode. And so that's something that if you subscribe to the Patreon, which you can do for like $2 a month, I think, if you want, you will have access to that within a day or two of the episode happening, and also access to to like full archived episodes after they disappear from Twitch. I will say, because I want to make access, I believe in access to people, and I know people are coming from different positions, that Patreon content, qua the bibliographies and the show notes, those will be released. Those will become publicly available after I think 2 weeks. But if you want those things right away, they're there. That's like I would like to this is proving to be a lot of work. I'd like to sustain it. So like that's like a tension that I don't have much of a business sense, but I want to like both have content that's like patron specific to have like a little bit of privilege, but also to have these things be accessible. So I think we're going to do something similar to Discord, in the sense that we'll have a Discord that's public, and then we'll also have some Discord features that could be like, if you subscribe, we can hook you up with. We'll figure out what that's like, but that's awesome. I'm so glad. Oh, sweet. So we need to get the Discord live. We're still setting it up. Like we're learning Discord. There is a Discord, but we need to like have different channels and figure out like persistent notifications and stuff. Don't worry, it's gonna be really good. If you do want to Discord me, yeah, I am my Discord. If you want to friend me on Discord, you can. My Discord like is I think it's 5212. Let me just quickly check. But yeah, we're gonna have a specific channel for it, and we should be able to like. I think we'll be able to like mirror this stuff in some way. But which is also all to say that if you'd like to support via Patreon, you are. Oh, here we go. Sweet. God, Dan is so fucking on top of this. Okay. Okay. We'll. All right. I'll put a Discord link. What I'll do is I'll put the Discord link on like the Patreon. We'll figure out the logistics of this. I promise. Bear with me as we figure this out. I'm new at this, but part of what's been really heartening to me as we do this, to me and Dan both, has been just the quality of the things that people are saying in the stream. And so I want to make that be a space, if not in this. And I know that the Twitch stuff doesn't archive, but to actually have these things be places where people can continue talking, because I know that people are coming in at different time zones as well. So what ideally we can do is have both like a persistent chat going in the Discord where people can share links and have side conversations, and then also have the chat that happens here on the Twitch sort of be archived in some way. All right, folks. So yeah, which is also to say, logistically speaking, if you would like to subscribe on Patreon, please do. If you would like to share it with people who subscribe on Patreon, you can. I think if you have a Prime like membership on Amazon, even though Amazon is evil, I have one too. You can, I think you get a free channel to watch on Prime, like a Twitch channel. And if you pick this one, I think that redounds to our benefit in some way. Again, I'm just figuring this stuff out. We'll figure it out. But I will say that having people show up for the stream is amazing and makes me feel great, and is the reason that we're doing this, because it's really cool to talk to everyone. So thank you all for turning out. I hope you stay safe, and be okay. Cool. Discord requests are coming in. I will accept friend requests. Yeah, carpal tunnel on Discord. I would looking forward to see you all again next week. I think we'll have some exciting stuff lined up for it. I think the summer is going to be very, very. I think it's going to be good to be talking as the summer goes on. So as you're out there in the world, please stay safe and be well. I will have all these things posted soon. All right. Take care, friends. Thank you so much for turning out.